In front of the entire academy, Lu Yanran stood like a star, brilliant, beautiful, and undeniably gifted. During the summoning rite, she called forth none other than the legendary war god Bai Qi, instantly becoming the pride of the school. Yet in the crowd, a lone student scoffed. Only 40% compatibility, and you're all acting like she's the chosen one. Her eyes turned cold as frost. A bottom-ranking nobody dares to criticize me. The onlookers burst into mocking laughter, treating him like some arrogant clown. 100 years ago, a divine arena descended upon this land, altering the rules of the world. Long-lost deities awakened, and myth became reality. Now, any youth who turns 16 may attempt to awaken a god spirit. Those who succeed gain divine powers and the right to represent their faction in the mythic arena. But the summoning is no safe ritual. If the wrong god is called, the summoner may face instant obliteration. And this boy, once just a high school student from another world, has somehow been dragged into this game of gods. After asking around, he finally learned that today marked the once-in-a-decade day of divine awakening. Unfortunately, the Eastern Realm faction had long suffered a collapse in their native god lineage. This weakness had led to repeated losses against the neighboring Sakura Dominion in the mythic arena. Just then, the city lord stepped onto the platform and solemnly announced the beginning of the summoning ritual. The crowd erupted. This might be the long-awaited moment when the Eastern Realm rises again. Glancing at the summoning token in his palm, he couldn't help but sigh. This world was truly brutal. One misstep, and a failed summoning meant instant annihilation. At that moment, dressed in flowing white robes, Lu Yanran took the stage, becoming the first to step onto the sacred altar. The entire arena fell into silence. With her talent, everyone believed she would call forth a mighty god. Unfortunately, the Eastern Realm had already lost 2 matches this morning in the mythic arena. The situation was dire, and if Lu Yanran could summon a powerful deity, it might just turn the tide. She stepped forward with calm confidence, while even the city lord beside her silently hoped she'd awaken a high-tier god to save their faction from disgrace. As her fingertips touched the summoning crystal, a burst of radiant energy exploded outward, drawing everyone's gaze. The old scholar, standing next to the lord, gasped. That's the omen of a high-grade deity. Moments later, 3 towering divine figures emerged in the sky, exuding overwhelming power, yet none of them had ever been recorded in the Eastern Realm's ancient archives. But his heart tightened. Those silhouettes looked exactly like the legendary war gods from his past life on Earth. The crowd buzzed with speculation, voices rising in excitement. And then, Lu Yanran's voice rang like a silver bell. The god of slaughter, whose name echoes through history. The Battle of Red Cliffs ran with blood. I, Lu Yanran, humbly invite the war god Bai Qi to descend. In response, Bai Qi's divine form began its descent from the heavens, slowly approaching the altar. Yet he couldn't shake the confusion. Red Cliffs? Wasn't Bai Qi famous for the Battle of Chongping? That was a completely different era. Zhou Hao quickly pulled him aside and whispered harshly. Lu Yanran is the daughter of a sword immortal. With that kind of heritage, how dare you question her here, of all places? More voices joined in the mockery. Who does this clown think he is? Making up nonsense like some Battle of Chongping? That's not even in the history records. A quiet sorrow settled in his heart. This world, its civilization had truly suffered a break. The people had forgotten their past, their blood-soaked legacy, and replaced it with hollow myths. Then came the city lord's official announcement. Lu Yanran had achieved a 40% compatibility, successfully summoning an S-rank deity, Bai Qi, the god of slaughter. Lu Yanran glanced in his direction, her eyes cold and proud, as if silently saying, "Now do you understand the gap between us?" Yet she was still young. Her true power needed time to grow. All awaited the return of her father, the famed sword immortal guarding the frontier, to lead them in the coming divine war. But instead of stepping down, Lu Yanran turned her gaze upward, toward the two remaining divine silhouettes still suspended in the sky. The city lord furrowed his brow. What's she trying to do now? She moved beneath one of the figures, a towering presence draped in a black imperial robe. The aura alone proclaimed him a sovereign. Whispers swept through the crowd. Could it be the one they called the Eternal Emperor? The youth who pacified the realm? A warrior king of 1,000 campaigns? Maybe, just maybe, it's the legendary Taizong. But the records of his deeds are little more than fading shadows now. He glanced at the divine statue and immediately shook his head. That can't be Li Shimin. During the Sui Tang period, emperors wore robes of bright yellow. No dynasty in recorded history ever dressed their monarchs in black. Slowly, he approached the shadowy figure. As the divine presence washed over him, he felt a surge of immense, deep pressure. Something about it sparked a familiar memory. Suddenly, an aged voice rang out across the arena. This is the first imperial-class deity to appear in 100 years. But beware, there have been countless rulers across history. If the wrong one is summoned, the backlash could kill the summoner instantly. The speaker was none other than Dean Li Xian of the prestigious Skyward Academy, the highest authority among the four great institutions. Even a city lord stepped forward in alarm. Liu Yanran, you are the future of the realm. We cannot allow you to take such a deadly risk. But Liu Yanran hesitated, her gaze lingering on the imperial figure above. If she turned away now, this supreme deity might vanish from the world forever. Li Xian firmly intervened again. We cannot gamble the fate of our strongest future champion. Without delay, he issued an emergency order, activating 10 years' worth of national destiny reserves to stabilize the deity's essence temporarily. Their only hope was to see if a student among them could recognize the god. Turning toward the gathered youths, Li Xian's eyes swept across them all. Though historical records were vague, many believed this deity resembled the legendary Emperor Taizong. And if that were true, then this divine presence could be the key to their civilization's revival. The Eastern Realm had already suffered two devastating losses in this war of national fate, both at the hands of the Sakura Dominion. One more defeat, and their place in the mythic arena might be lost forever. Li Xian addressed the crowd with grave intensity. If any of you recognize this deity, step forward. But let me be absolutely clear. Summon the wrong god, and you will die where you stand. So, is anyone still willing to try? Whispers filled the air. Many began to doubt. Perhaps this wasn't Emperor Taizong at all. A mistake here would mean certain death. But the warriors of the Eastern Realm were never known for cowardice. A young man shouted, "I'll do it. I'll fight for the realm, even if it costs my life." A girl stepped out just as boldly. Chunyu of the Magic City Academy, willing to risk everything. More voices followed, students shouting the names of their academies and pledging themselves to the cause. For the realm, we are not afraid to die. Just then, one figure raised his hand, stepping forward to silence the noise. This deity, I believe his true identity differs from the dean's assumption. Liu Changsheng of Jinling Academy. I'll be the one to try. The crowd turned in stunned silence. Wasn't it the clown who questioned Liu Yanran earlier? Zhou Hao leaned in and whispered, "Are you sure? One mistake and you're dead." But Liu Changsheng didn't respond. Watching from the side, Dean Li Xian felt a flicker of unease. What a remarkable young man. Still, he couldn't help but question whether Liu truly understood this emperor's history. After all his research, the only figure that matched this deity's traits was Emperor Taizong. Even so, he gave a reluctant nod. "You may try, but be certain of the risk." Liu smiled faintly. "Leave it to me. As for the risk, there's nothing to consider. I know exactly who this emperor is." From the opposing stands of the Sakura Dominion came waves of laughter. "Look at that fool, so eager to die, and he thinks he's some kind of hero." But behind Liu, cheers erupted from the Eastern Realm's side, chanting his name with unshakable pride. He reached out and placed his hand on the summoning crystal. In the next instant, a brilliant crimson light exploded from the altar, so blinding that the crowd had to shield their eyes. Lu Yinran's expression changed instantly. What? He triggered an unknown high-level deity too? Could this clown have awakened something even stronger than mine? The Sakura Dominion was stunned. Crimson light? They had always believed that orange was the highest divine grade. Was there a rank beyond even that? Even the Spearhold Federation's delegation clenched their jaws in frustration. They hadn't seen a single yellow-tier divine light, and now they were witnessing a crimson one. Dean Lixian's voice was deep and steady. This is the aura of an SSS-ranked deity. The known divine ranks are white, green, blue, purple, and orange. But few realize, beyond orange lies one forbidden tier, crimson. The city lord stood in shock. An SSS-ranked deity. Could such a god truly exist in the Eastern Realm's forgotten history? But Lixian narrowed his eyes and murmured, "The rank of SSS is merely a measure of the god, not of the summoner. And this boy hasn't even begun to show his full power." Even Lu Yinran looked stunned. Wasn't he just a failing student? And yet he summoned a force stronger than anything she had ever seen. The colossal figure forming in the light radiated a terrifying divine pressure, a presence that seemed to declare, "Victory will return to the realm." Lixian gasped as he recognized the form. A battle axe, a titan that reaches the heavens. Could it be Xing Tian, the ancient war god? Lu Changsheng smirked faintly. A dean should know better. Xing Tian fought headless, seeing with his chest, speaking from his belly, wielding twin axes in fury. This being is not Xing Tian. Still, he couldn't fully blame them. The mythology of this world had long been buried, forgotten. Perhaps that was why he'd been brought here in the first place. Then his voice rang out across the sacred altar, solemn and resounding. In the beginning, Pangu split the heavens and shaped the world. Though his body fell, his soul remains eternal. Lu Changsheng of Jinling Academy humbly calls upon the creator god, Pangu, to descend. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Creator god? What kind of deity is that supposed to be? Many spectators from the Eastern Realm looked confused. How does Lu Changsheng even know about this Pangu god? But for those who knew the ancient tales, the answer was terrifying. Pangu, the one who split the heavens and gave birth to the world. A being beyond comparison. If Lu could truly wield the power of Pangu in battle, the enemy wouldn't even have time to beg for mercy. At that moment, a glowing system panel appeared in front of him. Name, Lu Changsheng compatibility, 1% bonded deity, Pangu, far away, deep within the temple of all deities, where every god of the Eastern Realm was ranked and recorded. Above them all, on the highest pedestal, stood the lone figure of the creator god, Pangu. Boom! The moment the system confirmed the bond, a temple acolyte raised a ceremonial hammer and struck the sky bell of divinity. It rang out 9 times in rapid succession. Each chime thundered across the land, shaking the heavens themselves. Even sword immortal Lu Qing, stationed on the borderlands, paused and frowned. Did I just hear 9 chimes? Dean Lixian trembled with excitement. 9 tolls, the divine number of perfection. It's unprecedented. He really awakened the supreme god. Even Lu Yinran couldn't hide her shock. They say the strongest god ever recorded triggered only 3, but this is on a whole other level. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the Sakura Dominion stands. What the hell? That brat from the Eastern Realm just awakened the highest tier deity. Emperor Takura turned to a cloaked youth known for his serpent-based combat style. Can you eliminate Lu Changsheng? The man smirked. Even if he summoned the highest tier god, his compatibility is only 1%. He won't be able to fully summon it in the arena. With his current power, crushing him will be easy. Hearing this, Takura's gaze turned cold. The Eastern Realm has long been our sworn rival. That boy must be eliminated now, before he becomes a threat to us all. Without hesitation, he activated the forbidden ritual, the name-locking god duel. Meanwhile, Pangu's divine image slowly dissipated. Though SSS is considered the cap of God-tier ranking, Pangu clearly surpasses even that. Lu Changsheng, limited by his current compatibility, couldn't fully summon Pangu on the battlefield, but he was more than capable of calling forth another high-ranking god. As he stepped toward another statue to begin the next summoning, the ground beneath him exploded. A surge of energy lifted him into the air. Dean Li Xian's face darkened. This must be a name-locking duel. They burned 10 years of their national fortune to trap him in a dimensional battle. In the blink of an eye, Lu's body was fully teleported. He hadn't even had time to complete his summoning. As his form faded into shimmering projections, even Li Xian could do nothing to stop it. Furious, the instructors cursed toward the enemy's stance. Cowards! They've stooped this low. Even the composed Lu Yanran couldn't hold back. Those bastards! On the Sakura Dominion's side, the mood was triumphant. Their fear from earlier had turned to mockery. After all, the Eastern Realm's rising star was moments away from death. And if they could kill Lu Changsheng now, all 10 years of expended national fate would be reclaimed from his soul. Elsewhere, Sword Immortal Lu Qing received an urgent alert from the national fate system. His assistant quickly explained, "The Sakura Dominion has just burned 10 years of national destiny to prematurely activate the mythic arena. Their goal is to eliminate the Eastern Realm's rising star before he fully awakens." According to the rules, the name-locking god duel can only target god-bound individuals whose deities rank S or above. Once initiated, the target must respond. The assistant wiped sweat from his brow. 10 years of fate just to kill a student. It's downright vile. Lu Qing's fists clenched tightly. If anything happens to our champion in that arena, then next year, my blade will carve a path through Psycheo Fortress. 2 minutes and 30 seconds later, Lu Changxing's form materialized on the divine battlefield. Across from him stood a warrior cloaked in scaled armor, host of the serpent god, Amaterasu. The man smirked arrogantly. "You? Come on stage looking like that? With your current strength, I could tear you apart without breaking a sweat." But Lu didn't respond. He knew he couldn't summon Pangu here, but he had faith. The imperial god stabilized by Li Xian might yet return to the field. Enraged by his silence, the enemy shouted, "What's wrong? Afraid to even look at me?" And then, in an instant, he froze. Lu Changxing's face remained calm as ever. He tilted his head and said lightly, "A snake like you would probably make a decent soup stock." The serpent god warrior let out a mocking laugh. "You've got quite the sharp tongue. Let's see if you're still talking tough when you're on your knees." As both of us took our places on the stage, a woman with long golden hair descended from the sky, her presence commanding and regal. She was the appointed arbiter of this battle. Every move we made would be judged by her decree. It was said that, if the Eastern Realm lost again today, over half their population's destiny would be forcibly drained and transferred to the Sakura Dominion. At that moment, a glowing interface appeared before me, listing the core rules of the mythic arena. Rule 1. 5 deities will be randomly generated each round. You must choose one to summon. Rule 2. Once a deity has been summoned, it cannot be used again in future rounds. Rule 3. Best of 5. First to win 3 rounds survives. The loser and their god will perish. I like these rules. Simple, brutal, fair. Victory brings survival. Defeat means death. That snake bastard has claimed the lives of countless warriors from my realm. Today, I'm here to settle the score." He chuckled darkly. "Good. That's exactly what I was hoping for." As we both confirmed the terms, the judge's voice echoed through the arena. "Let the mythic battle begin." Representing the Sakura Dominion, Matsumoto Genzu, S-rank godbound, wielding the SS-ranked deity, Yamata Naroki. Representing the Eastern Realm, Lu Changsheng, bonded to the SS-ranked deity, Pangu, the creator god. The judge let out a faint, seductive smile. She clearly looked forward to this round. In the next moment, the massive form of Yamata Naroki descended from the skies, coiling with menacing power behind Matsumoto Genzu. He sneered, full of arrogance. "Yoshi, we got this in the bag. My serpent gods already shredded 2 of your champions. Prepare to tremble, little brat. Just then, 5 divine silhouettes began to emerge behind Lu Changsheng, shimmering with ancient power. A collective sigh rose from the crowd. No Pangu, one bitter thought echoed in their hearts. The heavens have forsaken the eastern realm. But Lu's gaze locked firmly onto a particular imperial figure among the 5. A monarch like him should never have been forgotten by the people of the eastern realm, nor buried beneath the dust of broken records. From the stands, Dean Li Xian shouted in urgency, Changsheng, that emperor, it could be Taizong of the Tang dynasty. Lu Yinran hesitated, her voice thoughtful. No, I think it looks more like the Ming Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang. Hearing them both, Lu could only shake his head silently. They're both wrong. Instead of correcting them, he calmly recited the truth. Qin's sovereign swept through the 6 kingdoms. All lords bowed westward. His gaze ruled all under heaven. He was the one true emperor of ages. Lu Changsheng bowed solemnly and spoke with reverence. I, an unworthy descendant of the eastern realm, pay respects to the first sovereign, Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Boom! A pillar of golden light erupted from the heavens, enveloping the forming divine figure. Within moments, the silhouette solidified, mighty, regal, and descended slowly onto the battlefield. From his sidelines, the city lord erupted in excitement. The heavens bless our realm. Even the first emperor has returned to us. But Dean Li Xian only sighed quietly. Alas, he is a human god. In the divine hierarchy, human gods, those born from mortal legends, were generally weaker than their counterparts, the feral, primal beast gods. Lu had just bonded with this emperor figure, while Yamada was already a fully manifested S-tier beast god. In a direct clash, the odds did not favor the emperor. Matsumoto, Jinzu sneered. So, you really couldn't summon Pangu. And to make things worse, you called out a pathetic human god? How pitiful. But Lu Changsheng ignored him, lowering himself with deep respect before the divine figure. Lu Changsheng, descendant of your people, offers his humble salute. First Emperor, the world may have forgotten you, but I will not. From this day forth, your legacy will be remembered, etched in eternity. Lu Changsheng raised his voice with conviction. My ancestor once dominated all lands, unifying 6 kingdoms beneath his banner, carving rivers and mountains into order, building walls that stretched to the ends of the realm, driving back every invader from the eastern realm. As he finished speaking, a golden dragon burst forth from Qin Shi Huang's body, soaring high into the air, its roar shaking the heavens. A system alert followed immediately. Lu Changsheng's compatibility with Qin Shi Huang has reached 60%. The students erupted in excitement. After hearing Lu's declaration, many were shocked to learn just how legendary the first emperor truly was. But Matsumoto Jinzu scoffed, unimpressed. So what if he was an emperor? He's just another human god. Do you really think he can move the heavens? Seeing confusion flash across the emperor's face, Lu calmly explained, that one belongs to the enemy faction that seeks to disgrace the eastern realm. Qin Shi Huang's expression darkened. His voice boomed with rage. Any who threaten my realm shall be punished without mercy. The audience from the Sakura Dominion snorted in laughter. Big word from a second-rate god. Did he forget how he tore apart their last 2 champions? Jinzu sneered. Typical emperor, always full of bravado. Then, with a flick of his wrist, Yamato surged forward, its aura oppressive. A human god challenging a true divine being? You've got guts, I'll give you that. Yamato spoke coldly, its voice dripping with disdain. I expected a worthy clash, a divine war worth my time. But instead, I get a human god. It glanced at the first emperor's lean frame and scoffed. That body doesn't even look like enough to get stuck in my teeth. Qin Shi Huang's eyes burned with fury. Not once in his reign had anyone dared mock him to his face. Then, slowly, a golden sword formed in his grasp. 3 feet and 6 inches long, its edge gleamed like fire. This was the legendary sword of unification, revered for centuries as the greatest blade of the mortal realm. This sword, the Emperor roared, was forged in the name of uniting the realm. From the audience stands of the heavenly Brahma domain, shocked whispers spread. Is that human god from the Eastern realm actually going to fight the Orochi head-on? Even the Spear-Old Federation's spectators grew grim. Honestly, it's kind of tragic. They finally summoned someone, and now he's about to be crushed. But not all were grim. Many leaned in with morbid curiosity. Can a human god really stand against a true deity? The great serpent narrowed its eyes, amused. Then come, dance for me, mortal emperor. Let's hope your little sword doesn't bore me. In a sudden blur, Yamato lunged forward, its body coiling with violent force. A mortal dares defy the gods? Then die as one. Boom! The impact struck like a meteor. The arena beneath them shattered, exploding into shards and dust. Seeing Yamato-Roki's destructive strike, Emperor Takura smirked. That so-called human emperor will end up just like the last two gods, torn apart without resistance. The Sakura Dominion audience laughed loudly. They summoned a human god? No matter the rarity, it can't possibly compare to a born-and-bred beast god. But then, FWOSH, a blinding golden gate erupted from beneath the arena, roaring skyward. In a flash, Qin Shi Huang's blade swept through the air, cleaving one of Yamato-Roki's heads clean off. The sword of unification shimmered with the phantom of a five-clawed golden dragon, its aura suffocating. Thud! The severed serpent head hit the ground, splashing blood across the stone. Takura's grin froze in place. His eyes widened. What? That strike from a human emperor? Lu Yinran jumped to her feet, unable to contain herself. He did in one move. He cut off one of Orochi's heads with a single sword strike. That's insane. Even Yamato-Orochi looked shaken. There's no divine energy inside you. So how are you wielding power equal to that of God? Qin Shi Huang raised his head slowly. His voice echoed like a bell across the shattered arena. To obey is to live. To resist is death. What flows through me is not divine power, but the will of 10 million cultivators of the Eastern realm. I am forged by the ancient Qi arts of the pre-Qin era, strength that defies the heavens itself. What are you to stand before it? Dean Luxian looked like an excited child, eyes gleaming. I can't believe it. Our ancestors from the Eastern realm actually crafted such a world-shaking Qi technique. The moment Qi cultivation was mentioned, Yamato-Roki's gaze sharpened, but it still smirked. Interesting, but all you managed to slice off was one head. As it spoke, the severed stump writhed and twisted. Within seconds, a new serpent head had fully regrown. My divine body regenerates endlessly. Limbs can be restored. Death is not my fate. Orochi let out a guttural laugh, bellowing across the arena. You're just a human god. What gives you the right to stand before me? In its eyes, mortals existed to kneel and grovel. For a human emperor to wound it? That was an insult that could not be forgiven. But Qin Shi Huang stood tall, unfazed. I've conquered kings and unified realms. Do you think a beast like you frightens me? If I fall today, I fall with no regrets, for I bear the honor of my people and the weight of 1,000 years. That defiance finally broke Orochi's patience. With a roar, all 8 heads lunged at once, an overwhelming wave of fangs and fury. But each strike was met by blinding sword arcs and thunderous steps. The human emperor stood his ground, deflecting one serpent after another. Still, he was only human. Slowly, he began to falter. Wounds opened across his body, and his stance wavered. Meanwhile, Yamato-Roki, though injured, continued to regenerate, its divine body restoring itself with terrifying speed. Soon, every wound would be gone. In the stands of the Eastern realm, many spectators could barely watch anymore. It wasn't that the human emperor was weak, but Yamato-Roki's undying regeneration was simply too monstrous. Even Qin Shi Huang himself looked shaken. In all the ancient texts he had studied, not even the immortals were truly unkillable. But he didn't retreat. In the span of a 10,000th of a blink, he struck again, severing another serpent head. He would test one truth. Could he kill faster than it could heal? Yet after just 2.5 rounds, the Orochi landed a brutal hit. It had sensed his fatigue, realizing that each of his attacks had grown slower, more desperate. Boom! Qin Shi Huang's body slammed into the arena floor, stone erupting around him. He dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. His strength was nearly gone. In the stands, a young girl sobbed uncontrollably. The mythic arena runs with the blood of our ancestors. It's too painful to watch. Dean Li Xian's expression collapsed into despair. He had prepared to forfeit. If Lu Changsheng still lived, perhaps the Eastern Realm had a future. But now, he couldn't let another ancestor die. Yamato-no-Roki advanced with overwhelming pressure. Though it had only 8 heads, in the Emperor's eyes, they stretched into infinity. Yet beneath that pressure, Qin Shi Huang sensed something familiar. A pulse, a current. The chi of the Eastern Realm, rising. He stood tall once more, voice ringing like a royal edict. All under heaven belongs to the throne, and you mongrels dare to run wild before its might. And then, from the bodies of the elite below, divine shadows were pulled upward, drawn toward the arena. Not just them. Across the realm, countless golden soul flames rose from the bodies of every divine citizen, converging toward the human emperor. The golden spirits flooding the arena were none other than the celestial Qin armor, a divine legion once forged by the human emperor himself to guard the Eastern Realm for centuries. Qin Shi Huang let out a cold chuckle. You dare challenge me? With a single thunderous roar, kill. The sky itself trembled. The champion of Yamato-no-Roki began to panic. How could a mere human god summon such terrifying divine forces? But he clung to his arrogance. No matter what, a human god was still just that, a human. They would never rival true gods like his Yamato-no-Roki. Still, he thought of another way to win. Kill the chosen one, Lu Changsheng, and the match was his. He activated his ability, his body fading from sight. So what if you're blessed by heaven? I won't let you live long enough to grow. Whoosh! In a flash, the foreign champion reappeared behind Lu Changsheng. Both Dean Li Xian and Lu Yanran shouted in alarm, "Behind you!" Clang! The blade skimmed past his neck, but failed to even scratch him. Lu Changsheng instantly seized his opponent's wrist. Boom! With a perfect over-the-shoulder throw, he slammed the enemy into the arena floor. The crowd gasped. He just became a divine chosen, right? And his resonance with his god is barely anything. How is he this strong? Lu sneered. Sure, my compatibility with Pangu is low, just 1%. But even that tiny fraction grants me the strength of creation itself. As for that rusty blade of Matsumoto's, he gave a mocking glance. That toy couldn't even scratch my skin. My body's already as tough as stone. The champion from the Sakura Kingdom quickly scrambled to his feet, clearly shaken. He hadn't expected Lu Changsheng, a newly awakened chosen, to possess such monstrous physical strength. But he still had another trick up his sleeve. His body suddenly began to split apart, forming a second identical figure. You pitiful worm, you have no idea what real divine magic even is. Matsumoto roared, shadow clone technique. This is the difference between us. My clones carry all of my power. Now it's 2 versus 1. Let's see how long you last. I didn't waste a word. I lunged forward and grabbed both of his legs. One clone, one original. Boom! I slammed the 2 bodies together with bone-shattering force. I smirked. Gotta admit, SS rank, divine, chosen really are built different. The audience from the Eastern Realm erupted. Some were screaming my name, and girls were practically throwing themselves at me. I'll marry him. No dowry, no conditions. Heck, I'll throw in 10 houses as a wedding gift. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the Sakura Kingdom stands. The crowd went from smug to desperate, begging Yamato-no-Roki to unleash his divine wrath and crush the entire realm of Dacia. Even their trembling emperor knew, If they lost this fight, it would shake their nation's faith and pride to its core. Yamato could not lose. But no matter how they prayed, Yamato body kept getting shredded by the onslaught of summoned divine warriors. Soon, its form lay scattered in pieces across the arena. Qin Shi Huang held a crushing advantage now, but the fight was far from over. Trembling, the great serpent whispered an incantation. It would now sacrifice the very souls of the Sakura Kingdom citizens to power a forbidden divine ritual, its final shot at victory. And in an instant, the cheering spectators who once chanted "Go, go," were vaporized, melted away by the searing heat of divine energy, without even time to scream. The nearly lifeless Yamato Orochi suddenly burst with new vitality. After devouring the souls of the sacrifice spectators, its wounds regenerated at terrifying speed. Within seconds, the beast's body was fully restored, stronger than ever. Meanwhile, I had completely overpowered Matsumoto Ginzo. According to the rules, when a divine chosen falls, the summoned god is recalled back to the gate of creation. That's why I didn't finish him off immediately. I needed to make sure the ancestor took out Yamato first, cutting off the thread at its root. The serpent let out a sinister laugh. "Foolish human, do you really think you're just fighting me? Your true enemy is the countless souls behind me, the people of the Sakura Kingdom." Qin Shi Huang narrowed his eyes with disdain. "So those you call your people are merely fuel to be discarded? You dare call yourself a god?" For the first time, the emperor's voice thundered with fury. "You treat your worshippers as cattle for slaughter, and have the gall to call that divine?" Panic spread across the Sakura Kingdom stands. Most had already fled, terrified they'd be the next ones devoured by the creature they once revered. Qin Shi Huang, the man who sought immortality and was once mocked for it, now sneered. "Perhaps I never found eternal life, but I discovered a technique. It may not grant me divinity, but it's more than enough to destroy a false god like you." The emperor soared into the sky, cloaked in radiant gold. He chanted a solemn vow. "May all beings rise like dragons, and may the name of the first emperor echo through eternity." In the next moment, streaks of golden light burst from his body, descending like a divine rain upon every warrior who had summoned a guardian spirit, blessing them with the first emperor's final will. Each of the human gods was now infused with the longevity cultivation technique passed down by the first emperor, rapidly enhancing their synchronization with their chosen deities. Even the usually composed Lu Yanran looked shaken. Her divine resonance was spiking wildly. And it wasn't just her. Everyone could feel an overwhelming power surging within them. At the same time, the first emperor's body had grown frail, like a candle flickering in the wind. But he held no regrets. His lifelong wish had always been the eternal rise of the Qin dynasty, peace for his people, and a world where mortals could stand as dragons. Tears welled in many eyes across the audience. So this is the spirit of our ancestors, a mortal who dares to dream bigger than the gods themselves. The emperor's breath grew weaker with each passing moment. This was the price he paid to protect his descendants. Even the monarch of the Empire of Albion was visibly stunned. The serpent god sacrificed its people for power, yet the human god burned his own life for theirs. The contrast was staggering. Whispers filled the arena. So this is the heritage of the fabled Eastern realm. No wonder the Huan nation must never be underestimated. The first emperor took a slow, labored breath and called out, "Where are the celestial Qin guards?" A thunderous reply echoed across the mythic arena. "At your command." Though his body was withering, he still stood like a war god. "By my decree, strike down the invaders, protect our land." The human gods formed a battle line, standing firm before the serpent god, ready to fight to the death. The serpent god blinked in surprise. The human emperor's aura was nearly extinguished, yet somehow he still summoned such overwhelming power. With a sharp slash, the army of divine warriors split the serpent's heads into bloody fragments. Barely 2.5 seconds later, The freshly regenerated body was again torn apart and scattered across the battlefield. A deadly glint flashed in the serpent's eyes. If it wanted to win now, it had only one option left: more sacrifices. Another wave of citizens from the Sakura Eastern Realm was instantly reduced to ash, their life force forcibly absorbed as fuel. The emperor of the Sakura realm paled in horror. He knew that if this continued, their nation would be drained to the bone. Many of those sacrificed were elite divine hosts. The entire Sakura contingent dropped to their knees, pleading with the serpent god to end its own life. They could bear no more loss. Some even cursed at it through tears. The gods of the Eastern realm protect their people, while you only know how to devour them. When nearly wiped out, already gravely wounded and cut off from its offerings, the serpent watched helplessly as its massive form was torn apart again and again. Seeing the opportunity, the first emperor raised his hand and began to gather a radiant sword of golden energy. Listen well, Yamata no Orochi, your followers have abandoned you. Now die by my decree. With that roar, he unleashed his blade. A golden dragon burst forth, piercing the heavens and the serpent's divine soul. Thus, the outcome of the divine duel was sealed. The Sakura realm had fallen. Victory belonged to Shinjo. With the demise of Yamata no Orochi, Liu Changsheng saw no reason to spare Matsumoto Gunzone. Time for you to join him, he growled, stomping down with a sharp crack as Gunzone's neck snapped. Just like that, the once proud divine champion collapsed lifeless into a pool of blood. The host chuckled, his voice filled with excitement. Now, that was a battle worth remembering. He then raised his voice to announce, Liu Changsheng of the Grand Xia realm versus Matsumoto Gunzone of the Sakura Kingdom. Victory goes to Liu Changsheng. The current score stands at 1-2. The entire stadium erupted in wild cheers. He actually did it. Liu Changsheng really won. Even the headmaster was stunned speechless. This is what it means to defy gods with a mortal's will? No, to defeat them outright. Even the referee couldn't hide his admiration after this battle. But the war wasn't over yet. After a brief rest, both nations' divine champions were asked to prepare for the next match. Qin Shi Huang let out a weak cough as he slowly stood up, his hunched figure looking heartbreakingly fragile. The crowd from the Grand Xia realm cried out, Your Majesty, puzzled and distressed by his sudden weakness. Principal Li Xian sighed deeply. He has little faith power left to sustain him. This battle drained him down to his very essence. Qin Shi Huang's form began to glow faintly, dissolving into streams of golden light. Liu Changsheng rushed forward, helplessly trying to stop the fading process. With a gentle smile, Qin Shi Huang left his final words, Changsheng, I can't walk the rest of this path with you. Before he could even finish the sentence, his body turned into mist and vanished. Not even a last touch could be shared. Divine beings depend entirely on the strength of belief. But with no worshippers for over a millennium, Qin Shi Huang had paid for this battle with his life force. As Li Xian spoke, tears welled in his eyes. We are unworthy descendants, we forgot him. Just then, a system panel appeared. Qin Shi Huang, temporarily frozen, awaiting faith restoration to rebuild core, can be re-summoned later. Liu Changsheng's bond with him had now reached a staggering 90%. Liu Changsheng was surprised to discover that Emperor Qin hadn't truly vanished. He would return once enough faith was gathered. Even more unexpected was the fact that his own resonance with Pangu had also increased. The moment he saw the system notification, he finally felt at ease. Moments ago, he had nearly been moved to tears. If one day he could summon hundreds of divine champions and even call upon Pangu himself to descend, then total victory for Eastern Realm would no longer be a fantasy. If Pangu took the field, no foe would stand a chance. Standing tall on the platform, Liu Changsheng shouted to the crowd, Emperor Qin hasn't left us. He merely rests for now. When his name echoes once more across the Eastern Realm, that will be the moment of his glorious return. Upon hearing this, Li Xian immediately ordered Emperor Qin's legacy to be recorded and preserved in the sacred archives, for future generations to remember and revere. The spirit of Eastern Realm must never be buried by the sands of time. At that moment, beneath the spectator stands, sword god Lu Qing arrived with his secretary. He was the next contender in the mythic battle. Yet just then, his secretary gave a sinister smile and whispered, "With my blood, I open the divine arena." The secretary suddenly raised her hand and pointed at Lu Qing. Her voice was cold and clear. Han Mamiko of the Sakura Kingdom hereby challenges Lu Qing of the Grand Xia to a divine arena battle. The fight will commence in 10 minutes. Lu Qing was stunned. You were a spy from the Sakura Kingdom all along. But more pressing was the fact that with him being drawn into this battle, Grand Xia would have no one left to fight in the main arena. Seeing her cover completely blown, Hamamiko dropped all pretense. She had been lurking at Lu Qing's side for 10 long years, waiting for this very moment. She believed that once Lu Qing was out of the picture, even the most gifted god chosen from Eastern Realm would be crushed before they could rise. In her eyes, the Grand Xia was destined to submit to the Sakura Kingdom. With a cold snort, Lu Qing drew the sword from his back. A divine shadow appeared behind him. You dared to strike from the shadows? You'll pay with your life. Traitors like you deserve nothing less than death by my blade. Meanwhile, Dean Li Xian received the news of the assassination attempt on the Sword Immortal and was shaken to the core. He quickly announced to the crowd, Sword Immortal Lu Qing has been ambushed by a spy from the Sakura Kingdom and is unable to participate in the upcoming match. Grand Xia will need to choose a new contender. The news sent shockwaves through the arena. Furious voices rose. In a battle of life and death. Now, even our Sword Immortal is down. Our chances are vanishing like dust. Especially since 2 of the 4 deans of the Grand Xia Academies had already been slain by Yamada no Orochi, and only Lu Qing had maintained an undefeated record against the Sakura deities. And now, with the 4th match just moments away, Grand Xia still hadn't found a new fighter to take his place. With a whoosh, a blazing phoenix phantom rose behind Dean Li Xian, radiating power and majesty. Lu Changsheng has exhausted his strength in the last battle. Now, let this old man take the field. But I quickly stepped forward and objected. Dean, please let me fight this round. I truly believe my odds of winning are much higher than yours. I'd rather take the risk than see you sacrifice yourself in vain. Despite my words, Li Xian still hesitated, thinking I was merely acting brave. Even the 2 top prodigies tried to dissuade me. Not every god you summon will be one you know. Besides, the Dean possesses unmatched wisdom and is the strongest of the 4 academies. His chances might actually be better. I turned to Lu Yanran and met her gaze. I'm not being reckless. I truly have what it takes to win this fight. The moment I finished speaking, a majestic tower slowly rose behind me, shimmering with divine brilliance. I smiled and said, I once had a dream. A serene immortal touched my forehead, and when I awoke, ancient myths hidden within the Eastern Realm were etched into my mind. Legendary figures once forgotten by time began to awaken in my thoughts. The crowd was stunned by the towering structure. What kind of realm is this? How can such a heavenly palace exist? But what came next shocked them even more. My voice echoed across the divine arena. In the heavens lies the Jade capital, 12 towers and 5 cities. An immortal blessed me, granting me a long life. As my words rang out, multiple phoenixes soared through the Eastern Realm behind me, dancing across the sky like a vision from the heavens. Upon witnessing the scene, Dean Li Xian began to speculate. In ancient times, some achieved sudden enlightenment, sages who ascended overnight, monks whose bodies remained incorrupt after death. If Lu Changsheng truly experienced such a breakthrough, then his recognition of forgotten gods becomes understandable. Lu Changsheng stepped forward and stood before the dean, his eyes resolute. Isn't this enough to prove my strength? I should be the one to fight the next battle. The city lord, still worried, said, I know you want to prove yourself. but the dean possesses unparalleled knowledge of divine texts. He might stand a better chance. You're young. You don't need to risk your life for pride. Without replying, Lu Changsheng approached Dean Li and spoke clearly. A phoenix soars above the 9 heavens, reborn from fire atop Kunlun. With a vermilion fruit in its beak, it casts golden light across the 8 directions. Li Xian's gaze locked onto his divine spirit, and to his amazement, he saw it growing stronger, imbued with divine nature, a gift from Lu Changsheng himself. The crowd erupted. Only now did they realize the so-called Xian bird was in fact the legendary phoenix, its true name lost to time, now revealed by Lu Changsheng. Lu gave a faint smile. Now, how do you trust me? The myths I know go far beyond what's written in books. Finally, Dean Li nodded. Lu Changsheng, truly a blessing to our nation. He signaled for Lu to rest before the next battle. But Lu Changsheng didn't return to his seat. Instead, he walked over to Lu Yanran. In a steady, powerful voice, he said, "Now it's your turn, Lord Wuan, feared across time. At the Battle of Chongping, even gods trembled. With iron cavalry and golden spears, you swept through 6 kingdoms and made demons weep." Instantly, the divine light surrounding Lu Yanran's summoned god, Bai Qi, flared violently. A suffocating killing intent filled the air. Once again, Lu had imbued a god with divine nature, this time the war god Bai Qi. Yet each time he did so, his own life force drained faster and faster. Everyone was stunned. Lu Changsheng, once seen as a failing student, had just empowered an S-tier deity of Eastern Realm with a new divine nature. And he did it not for fame, but to ignite a flicker of hope for his nation. In the eyes of the people, his figure had grown tall, mighty, almost heroic. Without him stepping up today, Eastern Realm would have surely fallen. At that moment, the 4th round on the mythic arena was about to begin. The host turned to both camps and announced loudly, "Would the contestants please step onto the stage?" Representing Eastern Realm once again was the prodigy who had just stunned the world, Lu Changsheng. As for the Sakura Realm, they had sent a new contender, Sakura Momoka, whose divine spirit specialized in charm and seduction. A wave of jeers rose from the Sakura crowd. Eastern Realm really has no one left. They're still sending Lu Changsheng? The Sakura Emperor smirked from his seat. The shadow planted beside the sword immortal has been activated. With Momoka's charm-based god, he was confident this round was already won. Sakura Momoka gave a sweet smile. "I look forward to this duel, Lu Kuan." For a moment, if one ignored the nation she came from, her appearance was almost innocent. But that was the problem. With Sakura warriors, their poison ran deeper than their beauty. Across Eastern Realm's viewing stands, countless young men found themselves entranced by her looks, their gazes dazed. Dean Li Xian gritted his teeth. That charm ability, it's stronger than expected. But why do we have 0 records on her background? At that moment, Sakura Momoka placed her hand on the summoning stone. Instantly, several divine silhouettes appeared behind her, bathed in shimmering light. Simultaneously, a 50-second countdown appeared above the arena. Glancing at Lu Changsheng, who had yet to summon his god, Momoka smirked playfully. "What's the matter, Lu Kuan? Still spacing out? Shouldn't you be calling forth your deity by now?" The Eastern Realm audience grew visibly anxious. "There's less than a minute left. What's he waiting for? Hurry up and summon." Meanwhile, Momoka's ritual had already concluded. Behind her stood a stunning figure with 9 swaying tails, her presence elegant and dangerously seductive. In the stands of the Britannia Kingdom, several onlookers gasped. "Who is this divine being? She's absolutely breathtaking." Even the stoic monks of the Indra domain flushed red. The moment that fox spirit appeared, she stirred emotions they thought long buried. This particular deity had never appeared on stage before, leaving the entire arena clueless about her identity. But Lu Changsheng only let out a calm chuckle. Just as he expected, the one she had summoned was Tamamonome, the most powerful of Sakura's 3 great yokai queens, unrivaled in beauty and charm. With her identity confirmed, Lu no longer needed to hesitate. With only 30 seconds left, he made his move. He slowly pressed his hand against the summoning crystal. The next moment, his eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected to summon him. With a powerful voice, he chanted, "Marshal Tianpeng, guardian of the gates." Iron armor, shining cold in the sun. His rake breaks through all foes. His 36 transformations conquer every trial. This time, the one Lu had awakened was none other than Marshal Tianpeng, Zhu Ganglai, the boar warrior of legend. Dean Li Xian and the city lord exchanged stunned glances. Is Lu Changsheng actually summoning a yokai-class warrior? However, this came with a catch. Lu Changsheng's core divine bond was with a human god, and such a bond determined which pantheon he could summon from. His previous success with Pangu aligned perfectly with that. But now, attempting to summon a yokai god was a dangerous gamble. If he failed, he would die instantly on the divine awakening platform. Stepping forward with solemn grace, he called out, "I, Lu Changsheng, humbly welcome the arrival of Marshal Tianpeng, Zhu Ganglai." The Sakura nation stands erupted in disbelief. That guy's lost his mind. Summoning a yokai? Every failed attempt in history ended in death. Even the Sakura emperor chuckled smugly. Clearly, he's out of options. Unable to summon another human god, he's now recklessly turning to yokai. But then, to everyone's astonishment, the towering celestial projection of Marshal Tianpeng began to fade, revealing a strikingly handsome man standing tall on the platform. The entire Sakura crowd was stunned. Wait, what? He actually succeeded? That's impossible. Meanwhile, the Eastern Realm side erupted with cheers. No one knew how Lu managed to summon a yokai, but one thing was clear. He was truly extraordinary. Dean Li Xian smiled warmly, like a proud parent. It seems Pangu'S legacy runs deeper than we imagined. With this, perhaps Eastern Realm still has hope. The Sakura Emperor scoffed dismissively. Even if the yokai took human form, he's still a man. No man alive can resist Tamamo no Mei's allure. Marshal Tianpeng stood tall at the center of the divine arena, clutching his nine-toothed rake. His imposing frame easily exceeded 3 meters. Lu Changsheng stared in awe. That's gigantic. The marshal furrowed his brow. Why is it so noisy out here? Lu quickly stepped forward and explained, "This is the mythic arena. Foreign gods have come to suppress Eastern Realm. I, Lu Changsheng, humbly ask Marshal Tianpeng to defend our homeland against these invaders." But to his surprise, the marshal casually shrunk his massive weapon and jabbed it into the ground. "I've had enough of blood and war. All I ever wanted was to enjoy the moonlight in peace and quietly accompany her. What do foreign gods have to do with me?" With a loud huff, he turned as if to walk off the platform. Lu called out in desperation, "Please, Marshal, fight for Eastern Realm. Just this once." Tianpeng grunted, picking at his ear. "You're just as loud as the rest of them. My poor ears are about to blister from all this chatter." Realizing persuasion wasn't enough, Lu tried another angle. "Do you still wish to see Lady Chang'e? Or maybe the Monkey King? And Tang Sanzang?" At that, the marshal stopped in his tracks. He turned with narrowed eyes. A world with barely any incense left, a dying age of gods. "Yet you, how do you know about Chang'e? And that blasted monkey and the monk too?" Lu Changsheng chuckled. "You're underestimating me, Marshal. Not only do I know of them, I have the power to bring them back." Marshal Tianpeng narrowed his eyes. "You? Summon them? Don't be ridiculous." Lu leaned closer, his voice calm but firm. "I know you're tired of being someone else's pawn. But what if I could summon the gods of Eastern Realm, rally divine power itself, and tear through the darkness to restore your honor?" He added, "Help me today, and I'll ensure Chang'e, the great sage, and Tang Sanzang are freed. But you must fight for Eastern Realm, right now." As soon as the words left his mouth, an overwhelming divine force erupted from Marshal Tianpeng. In the blink of an eye, the marshal returned to his true form and grabbed Lu by the collar. "You dare mess with me? Old pig doesn't fall for cheap tricks." The marshal's massive hand tightened around Lu's neck, but Lu quickly croaked out, "Wait, before you crush me, look at my divine guardian." A red aura burst to life behind him, an image of Pangu, the primal god of creation. Lu gasped, "Let me go, or I'm seriously going to die here." Tianpong froze. Pangu, the supreme one? Slowly, he released his grip. His gaze changed, now filled with reluctant awe. "So it's true. You actually summoned Pangu. Looks like I really misjudged you." Lu let out a dry cough and managed a strained smile. "So, Marshal, are you willing to fight now?" At that moment, clarity returned to Zhu Gonglia's eyes, his gaze now calm and resolute. "If even the great Pangu has placed his trust in you, then so will I. Just name the target. This old pig will crush whoever you point at." As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Changsheng fixed his eyes on a woman ahead. "Brother, your next opponent is her." Zhu Ganglai followed his gaze and grinned. "A woman? Huh, one punch and she's done." But Lu warned him seriously, "Don't underestimate her. Her divine spirit is a nine-tailed fox. She specializes in charm magic, especially deadly against men." From across the arena, laughter rang out from the opposing alliance. "Look at that. Lu Changxing's just standing there. Must have already fallen for her tricks." With a thunderous crash, the nine-toothed rake slammed into the ground, shaking the platform. The next moment, Zhu Ganglai withdrew his divine form and stepped forward in human guise, ready to fight side by side with Lu Changsheng. To Longxing's surprise, once Zhu Ganglai took on his human form, he instantly captivated many female spectators from the Allied Federation, leaving them utterly entranced. Meanwhile, in the Brahma Kingdom's viewing section, the monks whispered among themselves, "This ancient beast clearly holds immense divine power." Over in the Pale Empire, an elderly man murmured, "I wonder if this male spirit beast can resist Tamamo's seductive charm." On the arena stage, the divine-blooded girl began to step forward slowly. In the next moment, she suddenly shrugged off her kimono, then smiled and offered a proposition. "Dear Longsheng, why not join our Eastern realm? We would gladly welcome you as our most honored guest." She firmly believed that if Lu Changxing chose to join their faction, the people of the Securefall Alliance would welcome him with open arms, perhaps even honor him as a distinguished guest. Unlike Eastern Realm, she claimed their side would never let a newly awakened chosen one be thrown into danger again and again. At that moment, the chosen of Securefall cast a seductive spell under her breath, softly tempting. "If you come to our side, I might even consider marrying you." That made Dean Li Xin break into a cold sweat. This was no longer a fight, but a full-blown psychological assault. The city lord shouted in alarm, "Lu Changsheng, don't let her mess with your head." Lu Changsheng felt the weight of her enchantment. It was strong, dangerously so. If not for his unshakable will, he might have already fallen under her charm. Even among the people of Eastern Realm, normally fierce and unforgiving, many flushed in embarrassment. If just watching from afar made them uneasy, how could Lu resist from up close? But his answer was clear. He refused to join the Securefall Alliance. The opposing chosen clearly wasn't ready to give up. Lu didn't bother exchanging more words. With a snap of his hand, he summoned the nine-tooth rake. This was no ordinary weapon. It was a divine projection granted after the marshal agreed to fight. Through it, Lu now wielded a glimpse of the rake's true power. Realizing she couldn't win him over, the opposing chosen finally sighed. "What a shame. You had such a bright future, and you just threw it away yourself." Lu Changxing's expression didn't waver. "Turning you down doesn't mean giving up my future. Back in my previous life, during a modern history lecture, my professor once told me a powerful truth. Dignity lies only at the edge of the blade. Truth exists only within the range of a cannon." Those words stuck with me. If I kept backing down and avoiding conflict, I would only fuel my enemy's arrogance and lawlessness. If I were to retreat now, how could I face the millions of citizens standing behind me? Our Eastern Realm is a land of courtesy and virtue, but to friends, we offer fine wine and food. To enemies, only steel and fire. The audience from Eastern Realm erupted with thunderous cheers. Dignity lies only at the edge of the blade. Against the Securefall Alliance, We answer with bullets and blades. As I readied for battle, the cheers behind me surged again. Those who dare challenge Eastern Realm, no matter how far, shall be punished. And above them all rang a defiant chant. Lu Changsheng, razor sharp and unyielding. Meanwhile, in the distant halls of the Pantheon, a young boy was sweeping the corridor. Suddenly, a flash of golden light made him squint and stumble backward, unable to open his eyes. He watched in shock as the national destiny of Eastern Realm surged upward before his eyes. Terrified, he rushed to report it to his superiors. Back on the battlefield, my duel had begun. I leapt into the air, swinging the nine-tooth rake with devastating force. My opponent countered with a deadly finishing move, ashfall of Yamabuki blossoms, scatter of willow leaves. Her folding fan shimmered with an enchanting aura. But I didn't pause for even a second. My weapon struck straight into that fan with overwhelming force. A cold sweat broke out on the face of the Sakura Realm's divine tactician. A newcomer with this level of brute force? He must not be allowed to live. She closed her folding fan, eyes sharpening with murderous intent. Her next move would end this battle. Her hands moved rapidly, forming seals. Ninjutsu, shadow clone technique, she shouted. In a flash, multiple versions of Sakura Momo appeared on the field. Each clone felt solid, indistinguishable from the real one. She sneered inwardly. So what if you defeated Matsumoto Gonzo? You're just a musclehead. You could never grasp the elegance of real techniques. Lu Changxing's brows furrowed. Her mastery of spells far surpassed Matsumoto's. This wasn't a gap he could bridge with brute force alone. Suddenly, she dropped low, blades flashing as she drew her swords in one fluid motion. Nitten Ichiryu, Void Slash, she roared, unleashing her family's secret sword technique, passed down for generations. Lu Changxing's eyes widened at the oncoming strike. At this moment, he realized he might not be able to block this one. Whoosh! The sword energy hit him squarely, sending him flying like a broken kite through the air. Fortunately, Lu Changxing reacted just in time. Before the sword strike landed, he pulled back swiftly, avoiding a fatal blow. Still, the impact knocked him to the ground. The crowd from the Sakura realm erupted into scornful laughter. A freshly awakened rookie? Thinking he can beat our Sakura Momo? What a joke. Even Sakura Momo herself looked unimpressed. She had expected a prolonged battle, but now, victory seemed all but certain. One of her clones sneered, "Let's see how you dodge this next one." Swish, swish, swish. A flurry of sword strikes came raining down like a storm of blades. Lu Changsheng looked up at the descending barrage, calm despite the pressure. He knew there was nowhere left to run. "Take my rake," he roared, channeling all his remaining power into a single devastating strike. This wasn't just brute force. It was infused with the full weight of Tianping's 36 heavenly transformations. If this didn't work, nothing would. The blow soared past the clones and struck true, hitting Sakura Momo's real body head-on, catching her completely off guard. The Sakura audience fell silent. The cheers died, and in their place, gasps of disbelief. Sakura Momo looked visibly confused. She couldn't figure out how Lu Changsheng had seen through her disguise. Her clone technique was nearly perfect. Normal people would never notice a thing. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, Tamamo flashed a seductive smile and offered Marshal Tianpeng a choice. Kneel now, and she'd let him witness her beauty. The audience held their breath, wondering whether this Eastern divine warrior could resist her overwhelming charm. But in Tianpeng's mind, only one image surfaced, Chang'e. Compared to her, this fox spirit looked utterly grotesque. He said coldly, "A stinking old fox like you? Hard pass." Tamamo froze. Never in her life had she been called ugly, let alone by a pig demon. Before she could recover, Tianpeng launched himself forward like a cannonball. The crowd erupted. "You pig-faced freak. Look at yourself before calling anyone else ugly." With a powerful swing of his rake, Tianpeng struck, but Tamamo managed a last-second backflip to dodge. She quickly countered, forming rapid hand signs. A purple energy orb formed at her fingertips, engulfing her hands. "You'll pay for what you just said," she growled. Tamamonome began chanting softly, a spell that unleashed her ultimate technique. Similar to the legendary heavenly body expansion, it caused her body to swell to monstrous proportions. With a single stomp, she nearly knocked Marshal Tianpeng off balance. "This is my celestial demon's wrath," she roared, her eyes blazing. "Feel my fury." Her titanic form loomed like a mountain, radiating overwhelming pressure. Even Lu Changsheng furrowed his brow slightly. If that foot landed, Tianpeng might really be flattened. But he showed no fear. If the tide didn't turn soon, he'd end the fight himself. Tamamonome had activated Swayed-in Amaterasu, also known as the Yada Mirror, one of the 3 divine relics of the Sakura realm. With its power, her core strength surged nearly tenfold. But Marshal Tianpeng wasn't about to back down. He roared, "Heavenly Body Ascension." A torrent of divine energy from the 36 heavenly stars erupted around him. In an instant, his body expanded to match the fox spirits. In size, they were equals, but in raw power, the gap remained. Tamamo's fingertips sparked with golden light. She was preparing her strongest strike, Celestial Spirit Strike. But Tianpeng caught the attack effortlessly, as if it were nothing but a breeze. He spun his 9-toothed rake with incredible force, creating a storm of golden energy. It whirled like a coiled dragon, roaring across the field. Then, spotting an opening, he struck. The rake lashed out at her face, but Tamamonome narrowly dodged. One moment slower, and she would have paid dearly. Even Lu Changsheng was taken aback. Tamamonome, the 9-tailed fox and top demon king of the Sakura realm, was an SSS tier deity, their nation's hidden ace. Yet Marshal Tianpeng, who was only SS tier, was suppressing her with ease. That battle made one thing clear to Lu Changsheng. In future fights, he could never rely on levels alone to judge strength. Underestimating the wrong opponent could be fatal. Tamamonome wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, her gaze turning cold and vicious. "You dumb pig, you've completely pissed me off. I'll roast you like a suckling pig and eat you piece by piece." She raised both hands, and in an instant, the sky darkened as storm clouds rolled in like a tidal wave. The audience from the Great Xia side also noticed the change, murmuring in confusion. Why did it suddenly go dark? With a wave of her hand, Tamamo summoned a barrage of blazing purple fireballs from the sky, raining down with terrifying force. This was her deadly move, Foxfire Annihilation. One touch from those flames, and the victim would be reduced to ash. Hovering in the air, she launched fireball after fireball at Marshal Tianpeng in a relentless bombardment. The intense assault nearly shattered Tianpeng's protective aura, his spiritual shield on the verge of collapse. Dean Lixien was sweating bullets, visibly anxious, but even so, he didn't utter a word. All he could do was stare at the divine battlefield with bated breath. Then, a dramatic reversal struck. Marshal Tianpeng raised his hand and roared, "Water, come forth." In that instant, a brilliant yellow lightning bolt burst from his body, piercing the clouds and splitting the sky open. 2 divine figures descended from the heavens, Raijin and Fujin, thunder gods wielding mighty hammers, arriving like the wrath of heaven itself. Boom! Thunder roared, lightning cascaded like waterfalls, striking the ground with devastating force. In the blink of an eye, a massive crater formed in front of Tamamonome, the scorched earth still smoking. She stared at the pit, her expression shifting. Could an SS-tier deity really unleash something like this? But the real shock hadn't even arrived yet. A colossal water vortex began to descend from the sky. Every stream of water responded to Marshal Tianpeng's call, flowing toward him as if commanded by a higher will. Tamamonome furrowed her brows, clearly unsettled. Where's all this water coming from? Marshal Tianpeng let out a cold snort and declared proudly, "As commander of the Celestial River Navy, Controlling its waters is only natural. He then took to the skies, gliding upward effortlessly as if riding the wind itself. On the Sakura realm side, the spectators had fallen into stunned silence. They could only pray quietly that the nine-tailed fox wouldn't suffer total defeat. On the battlefield, Tianpeng was ready. His next blow, brimming with overwhelming force, was about to come crashing down. Seeing this, Tamamome had no choice but to activate her protective barrier, though even she doubted it could withstand the incoming strike. Boom! A blinding flash of golden light erupted between the two combatants. Tianpeng's nine-toothed rake struck directly against her enchanted mirror. Crack! The mirror shattered instantly, the sound sharp and final. Tamamome stood frozen in disbelief. Her face was blank with shock. How could her strongest defense be broken so effortlessly? Meanwhile, the audience from the Eastern Realm erupted in cheers. That blow? Absolutely legendary. Meanwhile, the Sakura Realm's audience sat in utter silence. No one dared speak. They all knew the crushing consequences of losing this divine battle. Marshal Tianpeng seized the momentum, determined to finish the nine-tailed fox in one decisive blow. With a fierce horizontal sweep, his nine-toothed rake ripped through the air with a sonic boom. In a flash of silver, it passed straight through her body. Tianpeng froze. Confusion flickered across his face. That was a divine weapon, an ancient relic. Even she shouldn't have emerged unscathed. Unbeknownst to him, Tamamome had used the golden cicada escape at the last second, leaving a decoy behind to absorb the blow. Now, her mocking expression was gone. This pig demon, physically unstoppable, magically adept, and with spiritual power exceeding her own, was nearly flawless. Her eyes shifted to Lu Changsheng. When did the Eastern Realm produce a chosen one who could summon a creature like this? Lu Changsheng met her gaze without flinching. Keep staring, hag. One more look, and my pig bro's gonna flatten you. Tianpeng chuckled. That last move, some sort of escape technique, wasn't it? As he spoke, he cast a spell of his own, Water Flash Step. His form rippled like water and vanished into the air. In a split-second opening, Marshal Tianpeng's nine-toothed rake slammed straight into Tamamonome's abdomen. She coughed violently, blood dripping onto the ground. Though furious, she could only grit her teeth and spit out a threat. After all, she'd been outmatched. But she wasn't done yet. With a sweep of her arm, she roared, "You think I've shown everything? Think again." A surge of magical energy burst forth, summoning one towering figure behind her and two spectral protectors in front. The audience from the Sakura realm erupted with joy. She summoned Shuten Doji, Oajitsumaru, and even Amaterasu. There's no way the Eastern realm can handle this. The main divine phantom stepped forward and spoke with chilling menace. Prepare to be judged, false god of the East. With a single gesture, four floating swords materialized before him, spinning with deadly intent. The second phantom joined in. Above them, the sky darkened as countless attacks rained down like a divine storm. But Marshal Tianpeng remained calm. He still had one final ace up his sleeve. In a flash, he activated his most powerful technique, 36 heavenly transformations. His form shifted into a soaring eagle, weaving through the rain of swords with unmatched agility. Once out of the attack range, Marshal Tianpeng reverted to human form, muttering under his breath, "Seriously? Can't win, so you call in your side pieces?" Even so, he showed no fear toward the summoned divine spirits. Tamamonome nearly laughed in rage. "You stubborn swine, taking the heaviest hits and still talking the biggest trash. Haven't you been dodging this whole time?" Tianpeng locked eyes with her. "Dodging? Me? That was tactical maneuvering. Learn the difference." Then he roared once more, "Heavenly body ascension." His body swelled to towering heights again, and his nine-toothed rake grew with him, now large enough to blot out the sky. This time, he was ready to unleash his ultimate move, Celestial River Surge, to wipe out all enemy summons in one blow. The divine waters rained down like judgment from the heavens. The phantoms that had surrounded Tamamonome vanished the moment they touched it. One remaining spirit barely dodged the waves of soft water, clearly terrified to make contact. Grinding his teeth, the divine shadow cursed. What kind of demon is this pig? Why does he have an endless arsenal of abilities? Pushed to the brink, the spirit went berserk. Energy surged violently around him as he prepared to unleash his deadliest attack on Tianpeng. Marshal Tianpeng looked up, and immediately, several waves of purple fire came hurtling down like falling stars, sealing off every possible escape. Boom, boom, boom. The ground quaked. The flaming attacks shattered his defenses and smashed into the arena with devastating force. Tianpeng was clearly struggling to keep up. At last, one blast struck him directly. He crashed into the ground under the full brunt of the purple flame. The Sakura Realm's crowd erupted in euphoria. It's a divine miracle. Amaterasu's ultimate celestial art. Even a pig demon can't survive that. One fragment of divine essence alone is enough to crush him. On the battlefield, Tianpeng's body tumbled across the arena, his golden glow flickering as his divine power began to fade. Lu Changsheng narrowed his eyes, sensing the god's spiritual core was destabilizing. The Eastern Realm's audience was pale with dread. They couldn't believe Tianpeng had fallen. The phantom of Amaterasu approached slowly, looking down on Tianpeng like he was a discarded corpse. "You're just a beast," he said coldly. "How dare you challenge divine will?" But just then, Tianpeng, half buried in rubble, whispered, "Heart of purity, awaken!" and a surge of energy reignited. Slowly, he rose to his feet, his body glowing gold once more. Even Amaterasu was stunned. What? This pig is still standing. Without warning, a giant hand burst from the cracked arena floor, lunging straight for the divine phantom above. On the battlefield, the giant hand clenched tightly around Amaterasu's phantom throat. The divine phantom's eyes widened in shock. His godly power was draining rapidly, and he could no longer emit even a flicker of light. Zhu Ganglai sneered, baring his fangs. "Yeah, I'm a pig, but I've never been anyone's livestock." Bam! With a sudden slam of his arm, he drove Amaterasu's spirit hard into the ground. Cheers erupted from the stands. No one expected this demon god to be so cunning. First feigning weakness, then executing a crushing counterattack with surgical precision. Lu Changsheng stood quietly, watching the scene unfold. Those strikes just reignited the pride of the entire Eastern Realm. Crushed beneath Zhu Ganglai's might, the phantom of Amaterasu could hold on no longer. His form began to dissolve into mist. With the divine shadow defeated, Zhu Ganglai turned his gaze toward Tamamonome. He hadn't forgotten how brutally she'd beaten him earlier. Now was payback time. Wham! The nine-toothed rake whipped out like a guillotine, cutting Tamamonome down on the spot. As the battle concluded, Zhu Ganglai's golden glow faded. His form slowly reverted to that of Marshal Tianpeng, standing tall and triumphant on the arena. As the battle ended, Lu Changsheng stepped forward, bowing with respect. "Welcome back, Marshal. You've returned victorious." But to his surprise, Marshal Tianpeng raised his hand and said hoarsely, "Stay away from me." The sudden rejection hit Lu Changsheng like a cold wind. What's wrong with him? Tianpeng slowly dropped to his knees. His divine glow had faded completely. His power was gone. The audience gasped in shock. Concern rippled across every face as the crowd sensed something was deeply wrong. Only then did Lu Changsheng realize Tianpeng didn't want him to see him in this defeated state. In the eyes of Chang'e, he had always been a great and mighty warrior. Yet deep inside, he carried only regret. If I had been braver back then, would things have ended differently? With labored breath, Tianpeng gave Lu Changsheng his final wish. If he were to die, find his senior brother and master and bring them to his grave so they'd know he wasn't a coward. But Lu Changsheng shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "You'll tell them yourself." He turned to the stands, and in that solemn moment, The people of the Eastern Realm rose in unison and bowed to the fallen god who had fought for them with everything he had. The moment Liu Changxing spoke, Dean Li Xian instantly understood his intent. His expression turned resolute. With a commanding wave of his hand, he ordered, "Everyone, prepare divine nourishment for Marshal Tianpeng immediately." At the same time, the battle was being streamed live across the Eastern Realm. When the people saw that Tianpeng was weakened and in need of sustenance, they sprang into action, packing treasured foods and offerings, rushing to send them as tributes to the gods. Deep within the sacred halls of the Pantheon, a colossal boar-shaped silhouette slowly emerged, surrounded by divine light. It was Zhu Ganglai. His eyes, long closed in slumber, slowly opened, glowing with radiant power. In the next moment, his spectral form appeared on the second tier of the Pantheon, a level reserved only for SS-tier deities. Only true gods of power and glory had the right to stand there. The director finally exhaled, his tone unusually relieved. In the end, we should be thankful. Changxing has become the Eastern Realm's last hope. On the other side of the arena, a long sword slowly slid back into its sheath, its chill lingering in the air. The summoned monster, a spider yokai known as Jorigamo, fell into total silence, its limbs twitching one final time. It happened the moment the sword immortal, Lu Qing, finished his last strike and lowered his blade. Yai Murasaki lay on the ground, barely clinging to life, her face frozen in disbelief. How can the gap be this vast? Before she could finish her sentence, her body collapsed with a dull thud. Lu Qing's gaze remained resolute, though deep inside he was hoping, praying, that it wasn't too late. As the dust settled, the host stepped onto the platform once again and declared, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the grand finale of the mythic arena." Before this began, many believed the Eastern Realm would be crushed by the Sakura Dominion. But their divine spirits defied all odds, showing a willpower the world had underestimated. Now, the final showdown will decide the fate of half the land and population between these two nations. Representatives, step forward. Back in the rest zone, Changsheng slowly stood up, ready to step onto the stage for the Eastern Realm's final battle. But just as he moved forward, a firm hand landed on his shoulder. It was the city lord, Bai Chuan. Bai Chuan spoke in a low, steady voice. "You've done more than enough. From here on, it's my turn." Changxing quickly responded, "I'm fine. I've uncovered the secrets of the Eastern Realm's sealed gods. We still have a chance." Bai Chuan, however, raised a hand to stop him. "That's exactly why you need to sit this one out. With your current sync rate, you can't handle what the Sakura Dominion is about to unleash. Don't forget, I was once the realm's most promising divine chosen." As he finished speaking, a silver glow appeared beside him. A towering divine figure took shape, none other than the legendary undefeated general, Zhao Zilong. But before Bai could act, a voice called out from the distance, "Hold up, Bai. This one's mine." Bai turned and gave a wry smile. "So you're finally back, huh? Guess I won't be needed after all." Lu Qing stepped forward with a casual grin. "If those Sakura rats hadn't hidden so well, I'd have already cut them down." Just then, a system panel popped up in the air, flashing a countdown. 30 seconds until the final battle begins. Lu Qing took in the situation with a sharp glint in his eyes. "Time is short. This final battle will be mine." With a sharp whoosh, his figure blurred, reappearing at the very center of the arena. He raised his voice. "Lu Qing of the Eastern Realm, who among you from the Sakura Dominion dares step forward?" The moment he spoke, a figure in the Sakura stand stretched lazily, as if just waking up. A flash of movement, and that figure vanished into thin air. When he reappeared, he stood calmly across from Lu Qing, announcing flatly, "Takumi Yamada, Sakura Dominion." The crowd from Sakura erupted in cheers. Their champion had arrived, and to them, the outcome was already set. Even the spectators from the Eastern Realm were stunned. Why would the reclusive divine child himself enter the arena? The young warrior glanced at the newcomer, curiosity and caution in his gaze. The director sighed. That's Takumi Yamada, the Sakura Dominion's one and only divine child in 1,000 years. A double S-class prodigy, said to be the Empire's ultimate hidden card. Takumi Yamada had made a name for himself long ago, on the very day of his coming-of-age ceremony at 18. That day, he slew Luo Jun, the Eastern Realm's third-ranked warrior, along with his bonded divine spirit, the Eastern Sea Dragon King. To please his older sister, he tore the dragon's tendons from its corpse and forged them into a bowstring as a gift. His own bonded god, it's rumored, is one of the Sakura Dominion's 3 noble deities, with a staggering sync rate exceeding 80%. Upon hearing this, the young warrior clenched his fists, gritting his teeth. Takumi Yamada, if something happens to Sword Immortal Liu Qing today, I swear, I'll chase him to the ends of the earth for a divine duel. On the arena, Takumi glanced at Liu Qing with a sneer. So you're the famed Sword Immortal? I've heard plenty about you back in West Capital. Liu Qing didn't waste breath. He simply raised his sword, voice cold as steel. Save it. If you hadn't killed the Dragon King a decade ago, Huizhou wouldn't have suffered years of drought and famine. Countless innocent lives were lost because of your so-called glory. Rage finally erupted in his voice. Today, only one of us leaves this ring alive. Instead of backing down, Takumi Yamada let out a loud laugh. You should be honored to serve as whetstone for the divine weapon of Amaterasu herself. That dragon's tendons? They now radiate glory from the bow in my sister's hands. And those commoners you mentioned, once the Sakura Dominion descends, they'll understand that sacrifice is the highest honor. The crowd from the Eastern Realm erupted in outrage. These Sakura bastards are despicable, willing to doom other nations just to fuel their own rise. Hearing those words, the young warrior fell briefly silent. He knew this wasn't just arrogance. It was the cold reality of a world ruled by power. The only path to dignity is domination. Beat them until they yield. Beat them until they kneel. Beat them until they beg for mercy. The host raised his mic high. With both fighters confirmed, we will now reveal their divine compatibility stats. The panel lit up. Takumi Yamada, double S-class, divine chosen. Deity, Susanoo, ranked 3S. In contrast, Liu Qing's stats, both his own and that of his deity, Li Bai, were 1 tier lower. Dual A. Upon seeing this, an elder from the Albion Dominion slammed his fist on the table and barked, "Send word to our forces. If the Eastern Realm falls, we strike immediately, seize their land and blood. Let Albion's banner fly across the entire divine realm." The Hamu Confederation leadership gave similar orders. To them, if the Eastern Realm lost, they could finally claim its legacy without resistance. Meanwhile, in the Indra Domain's divine court, its ruler let out a cold laugh. What a pity! Against a war god like Susanoo, the Eastern Realm is doomed. He turned to his attendant. Send word to Upali. Tell him not to waste this opportunity. We'll use their downfall to fuel a god-slaughtering ritual. Let their land become the altar. Back on the battlefield, an ominous aura surged around Takumi Yamada. Several divine shadows appeared behind him, each more terrifying than the last. With a single sweep of his arm, the form of Susanoo began to fully manifest, his divine body taking shape, the pressure suffocating. The Sakura Dominion stands exploded in cheers. That's our Yamada-sama. Rip those Eastern gods to shreds. Even though Li Bai had already manifested beside Liu Qing, the pressure from Susanoo loomed oppressively over them both. Off stage, the director furrowed his brow and muttered, "Changsheng, this fight may be harder than we ever imagined." Then came the host's booming voice. The final battle of the mythic arena begins now. Li Bai took a deep swig of wine and laughed heartily. Oh, what a thrill! But then his gaze drifted skyward, his expression turning melancholic as he softly recited, "Among the blossoms, a jug of wine, drinking alone, with no companion." As Li Bai recited his verse, Takumi Yamada scowled. Visibly irritated, his face twisted with contempt. He raised his arms wide and sneered. Are all Eastern Realm gods this arrogant and self-absorbed? Before the words even finished, a beam of golden light streaked through the air, aimed straight at Lu Qing's chest. Boom! A massive golden sword crashed down onto the arena, splitting the wind with its force. It was Takumi's signature move, Heaven's Judgment, Divine Plume Slash. When the dust settled, Lu Qing was still standing, but one of his arms was gone, severed cleanly by the blow. At the same time, Susanoo let out a deafening roar and charged at Li Bai, unleashing a barrage of divine attacks. Explosions and thunderous roars from behind echoed in Lu Qing's ears as gods clashed in a fury. He knew, deep down, if this battle was to be won, it would demand everything he had left. Without hesitation, he stood tall again, dragging his wounded body step by step toward Takumi Yamada. At first, the spectators from the Eastern Realm looked on in confusion, unable to grasp the meaning behind his sudden, desperate advance. Lu Qing lowered his gaze and quietly chanted, "When the Tao core is whole, 5 eyes open wide. When the sun ascends, all other stars fade." In the next instant, a golden sword hilt materialized before his chest, radiating divine brilliance, its energy crackling in the air. Upon seeing this, the director shot to his feet in shock. "That's a divine blade forged from his Tao core?" I stared in disbelief and asked, "Wait, what's a Tao core?" The director's face turned grave. When a divine chosen from the Eastern Realm reaches the peak of their cultivation, they can condense their essence into a core, what we call the Tao core. But once the Tao core manifests, it means the warrior has reached their final path. Either they ascend or they die. There is no in-between. Realizing the price, my hands clenched tightly. Lu Qing was gambling with his life. Meanwhile, Takumi Yamada's expression darkened. "Are you insane? You're using your Tao core just to boost your divinity. That's suicide." Lu Qing remained unfazed, his tone calm and resolute. This sword-hearted Tao core was forged from years of bloodshed, through countless enemies and sacrifices. I don't want to part with it, but if I must, I will. But this battle wasn't just his. It was the fate of the Eastern Realm itself. Even if sacrificing his Tao core meant his life would soon end, Lu Qing, as the Sword Immortal, would have no regrets. Then he shouted, his voice shaking the air, "Come to me." In the stands, every swordsman's blade trembled violently in its sheath. In the blink of an eye, hundreds, no, thousands of swords flew from their scabbards, transforming into glowing energy forms that hovered in the sky. And at the very moment Lu Qing swung his sword, the heavens seemed to split open. Takumi Yamada's composure shattered. He knew, if this strike landed, there was only one outcome, death. Panic-stricken, he immediately activated his flash step, trying to retreat from the sword's path. But no matter how far he moved, the sword's energy chased him relentlessly. Like fate itself, impossible to escape. Watching this unfold, Susanoo let out a resigned sigh. "Looks like I'll have to end this quickly." He slowly raised his arm skyward. Divine power rippled outward like a tidal wave. Heaven's dominion. In an instant, massive arcs of violet lightning converged, forming a storm of destruction that surged toward Li Bai. Yet Li Bai only smiled faintly and recited, "The great rock rises with the wind, soaring 90,000 miles into the sky." As he swung his sword, a golden rock burst forth from his energy, wings spread wide as it ascended against the storm. Boom! With a deafening explosion, the barrier of heaven's dominion shattered completely. Susanoo narrowed his eyes and smirked. Not bad. Things are finally getting interesting. He raised his hand once more and roared, "Come forth, sky-breaking blade." A divine weapon with a unique shape materialized in his grip. With a growl, he shouted, "Judgment has come. Now die." The sudden strike was too fast. Li Bai was caught off guard, engulfed in lightning, his cries echoing through the storm as he struggled to move. Meanwhile, the highest authorities from across the world had already gathered in secret. The spoils of war were now the only thing on their minds. The leaders of the Indra domain were the first to speak. The outcome is clear. It's time we discuss how to divide the Eastern Realm's lands and resources. With a sweep of his hand, the Indra domain representative projected a massive map of the Eastern Realm into the air for all to see. Given the current outcome, the Sakura Dominion, as the primary victor, will receive half of the Eastern Realm's land and population. As for us in the Indra domain, we're not greedy. We'll settle for the remaining third. That statement caused an immediate outburst from the Hamu Confederation's delegate. Why should you get the lion's share while we're left with scraps? The Indra official stepped forward calmly, but with overwhelming presence. Without hesitation, he slapped the Hamu delegate across the face, sending him sprawling to the floor. Are you questioning the will of the gods? If so, I'd be more than happy to let the flames of the god of Saba consume your capital. At those words, the Hamu delegate paled, his entire body trembling. All he could do was nod repeatedly in fearful submission. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, the duel intensified. Lu Qing pressed forward with relentless attacks, driving Takumi Yamada back with each strike. When the two finally separated, the very air between them shimmered from residual energy. Takumi grit his teeth, seething with frustration. He'd never faced anyone like this before. In every aspect, spirit, strength, divine synchronization, and sheer combat pressure, this so-called Sword Immortal was far beyond any SS-class warrior he'd ever known. Realizing he would lose if the stalemate continued, Takumi Yamada knew he had to make a move. Narrowing his eyes, he turned to Lu Qing. You know you won't last much longer. Once your Tao core burns out, you'll be nothing but prey waiting for the blade. But if you pledge allegiance to the Sakura Dominion now, I'll grant you power, wealth, and status, and I'll personally use imperial resources to restore your core. What do you say? Lu Qing gave no response. His answer came in the form of another blade strike. Clang! With a thunderous crash, Takumi was once again sent stumbling backward, his divine energy in disarray. Lu Qing lowered his sword and spoke calmly. I think I just saw fear in your eyes. Takumi looked up toward the sky, sneering. And what if you did? I admit, I'm not your equal right now. But your god, your Li Bai, is on the verge of collapse. Sure enough, Li Bai was still standing amid the storm, clenching his teeth in silence. Though lightning raged around him, he refused to fall. Watching from afar, Emperor Tokugawa of the Sakura Dominion scowled. He hadn't expected the Eastern Realm's god to endure this long. But to him, this resistance was just a delay. Death was only a matter of time. On the battlefield, Takumi Yamada's voice boomed with threat. Divine radiance brings salvation to all. Susanoo, the coldest executioner of Takamagara, your god can't escape divine judgment. Yet Lu Qing stood firm, his voice calm but cutting. If a god is not greedy, why can't he tolerate a single word of defiance? If a god is not evil, why must he hold the fate of millions in his hand? Tell me then, what radiance does such a god possess? His eyes darkened, recalling painful memories. The fallen soldiers of the Eastern Realm, the starved corpses of the innocent, they're not history to me. They're yesterday. We are all born free. Who among you has the right to stand above us? Watching from the sidelines, I could feel the tension pierce my soul. If I didn't act now, the Eastern Realm would lose everything in this battle that decided its fate. With a burst of emotion, I shouted toward Lu Qing atop the arena. Seize joy while it lasts. Let not the golden cup sit empty beneath the moon. To everyone's surprise, the entire crowd from the Eastern Realm suddenly shouted in unison. Seize joy while it lasts. Let not the golden cup sit empty beneath the moon. That single line, filled with shared faith and willpower, surged into Li Bai's heart. Something ancient within him began to stir, ready to break free. A few drops of golden glowing wine slipped down his throat, like fate itself entering his soul. In the next moment, a radiant divine barrier exploded from his body, severing all lightning in its path. The Sakura Dominion crowd was stunned. What? How did he break free from the divine judgment skill? Even Susanoo paused, brows furrowed. He's been granted some kind of divine protection beyond the norm. Without another word, he slowly drew a long-forgotten blade from his side. It's been nearly 10 million years, and I never thought I'd draw this sword again. His voice turned cold. So tell me, are you ready to die? Feeling the force radiating from the blade, Li Bai knew he couldn't meet it head-on. Susanoo sneered. Your tricks? They're like a trainee who's been practicing for 2.5 years and still hasn't debuted. With that, the god of execution surged forward, his divine sword tearing through the sky with thunderous force. Watching from a distance, Takumi Yamada's confidence surged. Don't forget, I'm blessed with thunder armor and the body of a war god. Takumi Yamada sneered. You've burned your core and your ultimate move failed. What do you have left to fight me with? But Lu Qing raised his sword and replied, voice unwavering. If one strike isn't enough, I'll swing again. If 1,000 fail, then I'll cut with 10,000 more. Even if the road ahead is hell, I'll walk it through sword in hand. As the final word fell, Lu Qing vanished in emotion, his blade slicing through the air as he charged at Takumi once more. Meanwhile, Susanoo roared, Li Bai, do you have the guts to draw your sword and face me? But instead of responding, Li Bai tilted his head back and took a slow sip of wine. Susanoo's face twisted in rage. Are all Eastern Realm gods this arrogantly silent? With a howl, he brought his blade crashing down, but to his shock, the strike hit nothing but air. A shift in the wind made him glance upward. His instincts screamed danger. Above him bloomed a phantom lotus, soft green in color, its petals unfurling layer by layer, each one laced with cutting sword intent. It was a mark of Li Bai's technique, Azure Lotus Strike. As the final petal vanished, Li Bai spoke gently. This blade has a name, the Song of the Azure Lotus. Yet what he didn't expect was that Susanoo dodged every blade. Cleanly, effortlessly, with a furious roar, Susanoo unleashed heavenly thunder surge, shattering the rhythm of the Azure Lotus Song midair and ripping the sword intent apart. The Sakura audience burst into jeers. As expected, our war god never disappoints. That so-called Eastern deity? He's finished. Even the Eastern Realm's headmaster looked down, murmuring, the legendary Sword Immortal's ultimate move has already been spent. I fear we can no longer suppress that god. This time, our Eastern Realm might truly be doomed. Hearing those words, I clench my fists in desperation. No, there's still hope. The Sword Immortal, I remember, was far from done. Meanwhile, Susanoo launched into another barrage, his divine might surging with renewed fury. Your swordplay is impressive, he said coldly, but it's wasted against a god who carries the hopes of the entire Sakura dominion. I fight for my people. I fight for my world. But though Li Bai had been knocked back, he stood tall again, his voice ringing clear. For your people? You really believe that? Because all I see in your eyes is bloodlust and madness. That noble cause you shout about. It's nothing but a veil for your cruelty. At those words, Susanoo's gaze turned glacial. A mere lesser god dares to pass judgment on me? He let out a chilling laugh. Then I'll silence that filthy mouth of yours, forever. With a thunderous clang, his brutal slash sent Li Bai flying across the arena like a broken kite. But what shocked everyone even more was that Li Bai's Azure Lotus sword shattered midair, splintering into glowing fragments that rained across the stage. The Eastern audience stood frozen in disbelief. No, this can't be real. The sword of the Sword Immortal has been destroyed? Is the Sakura Dominion's 3S ranked god truly invincible? Li Bai landed hard on one knee, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He gave a bitter smile as he stared at his broken blade. So, the road is truly hard. I've survived the chaos of Chang'an and never once bowed my head. Yet today, I may fall to a foreign god's hand. I could no longer hold back. I cried out, voice shaking the arena. Everyone, open your classics. Recall his verses. I looked around at the tearful faces. Join me in reciting his poetry, for that is the true source of his divinity." My voice trembled, yet rang firm. He is not just a sword immortal. He is the immortal poet, Li Bai. At my command, the entire arena erupted. Audience members sprang to their feet, flipping open ancient scrolls, voices rising in unison. As the verses laugh loudly as I walk out the door, how could I ever be just common grass? And someday the winds will carry me far, to hoist my sail across the vast seas, echoed through the sky. The very air seemed to tremble. In that moment, Li Bai's aura exploded with terrifying force. A strange familiarity surged within him, as if these words had always lived in his blood, their ancient power now awakening his dormant spirit. Susanu's pupils contracted in disbelief. How could a man on the verge of death suddenly unleash such overwhelming strength? While he hesitated, I raised my voice and recited, "With sword light spanning 30,000 miles, a single strike chills 19 provinces." In the next instant, a blinding sword beam split the heavens and came crashing down towards Susanu. When the light finally faded, all that remained was the twisted fury on Susanu's face. "You wretched insects of the Eastern realm, how dare you defy divine wrath?" he roared, assuming a battle stance. Yet at that moment, the Sakura spectators recoiled in horror, for the god they revered was now shrouded in a thick aura of decay, a stench of death clinging to his divine form. But I saw through the truth in an instant. Yamada Takumi, who treats human life like weeds, could never worship a benevolent god. The one he truly believes in is a bloodthirsty war god, Susanu himself. On the stage, Susanu's voice slithered like a whisper from the abyss. "God of the Eastern realm, are you ready to be torn apart in eternal darkness?" Li Bai stared him down, his gaze steady and fearless. Then, with a single word, decay, a wave of black mist surged forth, engulfing the arena like a tidal storm of rot and death. I clenched my fists. No one knew the full extent of Susanu's powers in this corrupted form, and that uncertainty was terrifying. Li Bai darted backward, dodging with lightning speed. But no one can escape forever. One tendril of mist struck from behind, pulling him into its depths. "It's over. We're finished," the headmaster staggered, face pale with dread. Just when all hope seemed lost, the mysterious barrier reappeared, forcing the black mist to retreat and pulling Li Bai back from the brink. Yet something was wrong. In those few moments, Li Bai's hair had turned completely white, his youthful vigor gone. "This is temporal magic," Lu Yanran cried out in shock. In his current state, there's no way he can withstand another assault from Susanu. But I refused to give up, because everyone had overlooked one crucial fact. Though the world remembers Li Bai for his sword, what truly immortalized him was the title of Poet Immortal. On the arena, Susanu saw that Li Bai had been corroded by time itself. Grinning wickedly, he raised his blade high and struck with a roar. The resulting shockwave exploded like a tidal wave. Li Bai was launched dozens of meters back, crashing hard against the edge of the stage. Susanu burst into laughter, his voice filled with contempt. "Feeble god of the Eastern realm, from this day forward, your title will be nothing but a joke to the Sakura Dominion." Li Bai struggled to rise, his eyes dim with despair. "Is this how my legend ends?" he muttered. My fists clenched so tight they trembled. I knew I could grant him divine power again, but the toll on my body would be devastating. Looking back, I saw everyone's faces filled with fear and hope. I couldn't hesitate now. Gritting my teeth, I shouted with every last ounce of strength. "Life is a fleeting guest, and death the final home. Heaven and earth are one endless inn, where dust and sorrow linger eternal." Instantly, the crowd understood. This was another invocation of divine poetry. But the backlash hit me like a hammer. My body gave out, and I collapsed to the ground, racked with agony. "Chang Sheng, stop," the headmaster cried out. "Your body can't take any more." But I ignored him, forcing myself to speak through the pain. As the words echoed across the arena, they reached Li Bai, and in that moment something clicked. His heart steadied. His eyes burned with clarity. With my final breath, I cried, "Heaven gave me purpose. I shall rise again, even if all is lost." And then it happened. Li Bai's aura erupted like a volcano, surging skyward. His entire being transformed, as if he had stepped into a realm beyond the mortal plane. In the blink of an eye, Li Bai vanished like a phantom. With every step he took, ethereal lotuses bloomed beneath his feet, glowing in radiant blue. Clang! A piercing sword cry echoed across the arena, ringing like a divine bell through heaven and earth. With his blade drawn, Li Bai chanted softly, "With 7 stars beneath my feet, I drink the cosmos in my grasp." His sword aura burst forth, flowing like a river of time, laced with the laws of years gone by. Susanu's eyes widened in horror as he felt his divine power unravel under the weight of that sword aura. How? How could this Eastern swordsman command the forces of time itself? Meanwhile, in a pool of blood, Yamada Takumi's lips curled into a twisted grin. Staring at the barely breathing Lu Qing, he rasped, "This victory still belongs to me." To him, Lu Qing was already finished. Any low-tier God bless could finish the job. He turned toward the main battlefield with cold anticipation. Even if the sword sage suppressed his divine avatar, it meant nothing. The real battle was just beginning. Susanu could no longer deny it. This white-robed man was the most formidable opponent he had ever faced. And yet, he showed no fear. Instead, he sneered, "If I hadn't forged my name in blood, what right would I have to represent the Sakura Dominion?" His words sparked a frenzy among the spectators from the Sakura Dominion. They roared his name with wild fervor, hailing him as the guardian of shadows. The doctrine of blood-forged divinity had found new believers. High atop the divine palace, the emperor of the Sakura Dominion gazed at the skyrocketing national fate index. A sinister smile twisted his wrinkled face. With this surge of divine faith, their defeat is inevitable. Back in the arena, the tide of battle shifted violently. Susanu had entered his berserker state, divine markings igniting across his body. He roared and delivered a punch so forceful it sent Li Bai flying dozens of meters across the field. Before Li Bai could recover midair, a storm of thunder came crashing down like divine punishment. He raised his sword to block, but the sheer force of the lightning swallowed him whole. Amid the blinding light, his white-robed figure seemed on the verge of vanishing. I clenched my fist from the stands, panic surging through me. As the sole heir of the divine empowerment lineage, I knew this was not the limit of the sword sage. Li Bai, the unrivaled poetic genius of the Golden Tang dynasty, had stood above all literary giants for 1,000 years. His brilliance was so vast, history had no shadow to hide him. But now, with my memory fractured and soul in disarray, forcing another divine empowerment would risk destroying myself. And yet I looked around at the despair in my people's eyes. At Li Bai, still gripping his sword, his robes soaked in blood, but his spine unbent. I had no choice left. His true divinity had to awaken, no matter the cost. I rifled through the sea of ancient verses etched into my soul. Then, like a thunderclap, a line from Song on the River surged forth, the poem that once shattered the chains of mortality. It was the verse that marked his ascension, his path to godhood. With my last ounce of strength, I roared toward the heavens. With drunken passion, I shake the 5 peaks. My verses laugh across the endless seas. Golden runes erupted from my voice, fusing into Li Bai's forehead. In that moment, time itself froze. A shadow from 1,000 years ago overlapped with his form, and sealed memories surged into him like a tidal wave. The azure lotus sword let out a clear, dragon-like cry. A surge of radiant literary energy shot into the heavens. At last, the poet who once defined an entire golden age had awakened. He heard someone in the crowd declare, "I will write poems to surpass all the literary giants of past and present." In response, phantom shadows of heroic spirits nodded in respect, praising his bring in the wine and departure from Baidi as eternal masterpieces. At that moment, Li Bai felt as though he stood within his own legend, surrounded by reverent scholars, crowned as the unrivaled emperor of verse. Yet on the battlefield, he stood utterly still. My heart clenched. Had the divine verse failed to ignite his godhood after all? Then suddenly his sword shimmered, revealing the ghostly image of a calligraphy brush, as if the world itself were becoming his canvas, cutting the chains of my former self. Only now do I know who I truly am. The verse thundered across the arena like the voice of heaven itself. A flash of green-blue sword light exploded forth like a streak of lightning, piercing straight through Susanu's chest. Even in death, the fallen god could not comprehend it. He had crushed the poet, overwhelmed him entirely. So how had this man summoned such terrifying power in the end? Li Bai spoke slowly, his voice calm, yet commanding. This sword carries the fire of my youthful pride, the same pride that once crowned me the immortal poet. He gazed down at the fallen Susanu, his tone strangely gentle. You no longer need to bear the weight of this shell. To lose with dignity is also a form of release. As his words faded, Susanu's divine form began to dissolve into drifting light, scattering like ash on the wind. The sight left Yamada Takumi frozen in place, stunned beyond words. But in the next instant, clarity struck. If he killed Lu Qing, the match could still be his, even without the god. With a snarl, he charged, blade drawn and eyes filled with murderous resolve. Yet before he could strike, Lu Qing's sword pierced his abdomen with chilling precision. The look of disbelief on Takumi's face was identical to the one Susanu wore before fading into nothingness. In the Sakura Dominion section of the stands, chaos erupted, gasps, screams, and pale faces. Meanwhile, the Eastern Realm audience exploded in thunderous cheers. Shouts of Lu Shun is eternal echoed like war drums through the arena. Some noticed Lu Qing had sat down in quiet meditation at the center of the platform. Behind him, Li Bai's spiritual form had transformed, no longer merely a shadow of legend, but a divine presence reborn, radiating celestial grace. A system panel suddenly appeared in the air / Lu Qing and Li Bai have achieved divine ascension. In the stands, the Academy headmaster shouted with excitement, voice trembling. The sword immortal has reforged his divine core. Both his god tier and personal level have advanced. This is rebirth through fire. The city lord turned with a puzzled look. What kind of divine core did he gain? The headmaster took a deep breath and solemnly replied, Master of sword and verse. The crowd erupted in disbelief. No one expected such an earth-shaking result from this single match. In the center of the arena, Li Bai softly recited, The golden youth of Wuling ride white steeds through the eastern markets in spring breeze. As his verse flowed, radiant energy surged at Lu Qing's severed arm. In the blink of an eye, a new arm materialized, fully formed, without the faintest scar. The announcer boomed, Preliminary round of the mythic arena. Eastern Realm 3, Sakura, Dominion 2. Victory goes to Eastern Realm. The stadium erupted in deafening cheers. A comeback from the brink. Down 2, now 3 straight wins. A legendary reversal. Now, the host declared, will MVP Lu Changsheng of the Eastern Realm step forward to receive your nation's spoils of war? From the stands came a chorus of roaring chants. Lu Shun, get up there. As I stepped onto the platform, the system interface popped up once more / choose your reward. Option 1. Seize half of Sakura Dominion's population and national fortune. Option 2. Seize half of Orange Blossom Dominion's land and national fortune. The Eastern Realm has never lacked talent. What we truly need is land, because territory means resources, and resources determine rise. Without hesitation, I selected seize half of Sakura Dominion's territory and national fortune. At that moment, a crimson dragon soared across the void, roaring with divine might. In a single breath, it devoured massive swaths of Sakura Dominion's land, leaving only empty space. The affected regions vanished from the world map, and the Emperor of Sakura collapsed on the spot. Meanwhile, our global rankings surged upward. Eastern Realm had officially entered the top 10, now ranked 9th. Just as the celebrations began, a dramatic twist unfolded. Rome, Indra Domain, and the Hamu Confederation all launched challenge matches against the crippled Sakura Dominion. The city lord was stunned. Wait, weren't those nations strategic allies of Sakura? Why would they attack now? I chuckled coldly. They're just vultures circling a dying beast. When the prey is down, even allies bare their fangs. That's the law of power. Suddenly, a system alert flashed. / divine sync with primordial deity. Pangu, plus 10%. And I realized, each summoned deity enhances my compatibility with the prime god, so long as my nation's fate continues to rise. The day may come when summoning Pangu in the mythic arena is no longer just a fantasy. As for the divine traits, they likely originate from the very essence of each summoned god, offering permanent, stackable buffs and divine enhancements. My core technique, Ninefold Soul Rebirth, not only shields me from all spiritual damage, it also fully healed the backlash I'd suffered when granting godhood. In other words, I can now bestow divinity upon more forgotten spirits without fear of harming my own soul. Meanwhile, deep within the infernal abyss beneath Sakura, Dominion's capital, a woman stirred from her slumber. She had just learned that I single-handedly overturned the tide of battle, dragging the Eastern Realm back from the brink. And worse, her beloved brother, Susanoo, had been completely obliterated, his soul scattered to nothingness. But Amaterasu didn't mourn. Instead, a wicked smile curled across her lips. Interesting, that smile quickly vanished when her aides reported. After Sakura's defeat, all their supposed allies had turned on them, declaring challenge matches one after another. Her gaze darkened. Cowards. Opportunists. They dare call themselves allies. Black mist swirled in her palm as she growled. Withdraw from this round. I'll settle the score, one nation at a time. With that, the inky aura surged forward, merging into the dormant vessel before her eyes. That vessel now awakening. It was Amaterasu's external avatar, a vessel forged solely to bring calamity. As the dark mist coiled around her, the once divine aura twisted into something chilling and oppressive. Her subordinates collapsed to their knees, trembling uncontrollably, barely daring to breathe. None could understand. How had their once pure guardian deity become this terrifying specter of dread? Meanwhile, an official announcement echoed across the arena. Sakura Dominion had formally forfeited the match. The price? Kyoto City would be permanently ceded to the nation that defeated them in the previous round. The citizens of Kyoto, upon hearing the news, were thrown into despair. Panic swept the streets like a plague. On the other hand, the Eastern Realm spectators were ecstatic. What was already a victorious battle now came with an unexpected bonus. The Academy director watched solemnly and said, "This is the true cost of failure." Those branded with slave marks would lose their divinity, reduced to expendable tools in foreign lands, dying far from home without a trace. Meanwhile, the Eastern Realm had 3 cities forcibly handed over to other nations. Hearing this, a heavy feeling settled in his chest. He couldn't help but imagine the suffering of his fellow countrymen now stranded in foreign lands. Elsewhere, the top brass of the Indra domain were in uproar, condemning the Sakura Dominion for lacking honor, choosing to surrender land to the Eastern Realm rather than face them head-on. One bearded general asked, "So, who should we challenge next?" The Saint Child replied calmly, "Roma and Hellas dominate the top ranks. The rest of our allies are all scheming for themselves. Even if we win against a small nation, the gain would be minimal. So we go straight for the Eastern Realm." The general's face twisted in shock. "Are you mad? They just crushed the Sakura Dominion and produced a chosen one like Liu Changsheng. You think we could take them down that easily?" But the Saint Child just sneered. So what if their chosen one is powerful? Their gods fell during the mythic war 10,000 years ago. All that's left are broken echoes. The strongest they can muster are divine generals. God kings? That level no longer exists in their ranks. The bearded man blinked, then burst into laughter. I see. I was worrying for nothing. We have more god kings than we can count. Taking them down will be a walk in the park. The Saint Child's eyes glinted coldly. It won't be long before those feeble deities of theirs are wiped out for good. But seeing that look in his eyes, the general couldn't help but shiver. Is this really the same serene, selfless monk I once knew? Just then, the arena's host glanced at the system panel, his expression shifting with interest. Then came the official announcement. The Indra domain had chosen the Eastern Realm as their next target. The moment those words landed, panic spread among the Eastern Realm spectators. After all, Indra was one of the three ancient civilizations, and the Eastern Realm's current strength simply couldn't compare. But he remained unfazed, sneering silently. So they really think we're just an easy target? Soon after, the Eastern Realm's War Preparation Center was in full operation. His mind kept replaying the scene of the Sakura Dominion, enslaving civilians like cattle. He turned to Lu Qing. Which three cities were taken from us? Lu Qing replied solemnly. Mirror Bay, Harbor Isle, and E Prefecture, seized 50 years ago. Among them, E Prefecture had the richest resources and largest territory. Even after multiple campaigns, it remained lost. Hearing this, his resolve only deepened. If those before me couldn't reclaim it, then I'll be the one to begin the counterattack. He immediately requested the full database of the Eastern Realm's command-type deities. Lu Qing looked surprised. You're planning to personally lead the reclamation, using these divine generals? Without a word, a thick stack of divine files was placed in front of him. But what truly shocked him was seeing Xiang Yu, once a legendary name, ranked only as a B-grade deity. Even so, he decisively chose three names from a list. Lu Qing frowned in doubt. Bai Qi and Neza, sure. But Xiang Yu? Isn't that a bit of a gamble? But what happened next left the director completely stunned. In just a few minutes, he watched as I boosted Xiang Yu's divine vessel from a mere C rank, all the way up to double S rank. The synchronization rate? A staggering 90%. Seeing how pale and drained I looked, the director immediately tried to stop me. You can't keep this up. The toll on your soul will be irreversible. You've already done more than enough for the Eastern Realm. But I shut my eyes, letting the cold death energy course through my body. And then I activated the ninefold cycle technique. A surge of overwhelming energy exploded outward, completely dispelling the deathly aura in an instant. Feeling the technique stabilize, I grinned. This was the breakthrough I needed. No more holding back. I looked up and assured him with a smile. My patron deity is none other than Pangu, the creator. Any damage to my soul gets nullified by his will. The director stood frozen, mouth agape. What kind of cheat code is that? I turned back towards Xiang Yu's glowing projection. In history, he was the mightiest warlord the Eastern Realm had ever known, but no one had ever seen him at his peak. Perhaps that's about to change. Just then, a girl rushed up to me, eyes sparkling. You're the only idol I'll ever have. Meanwhile, Neza, the god I had chosen a bond with, was staring at me with curious eyes, scanning me up and down. Tilting his head, he asked, why do you carry the aura of my grandmaster? And that's when it hit me. The divine trace on me came from the one chi into three purities technique. Since Tai Jinren is a direct disciple of the primordial lord, and Neza is Tai's disciple, that technically makes him the spiritual grand disciple of Pangu. Right at that moment, a colossal divine figure shimmered faintly in the air. It was Pangu himself, appearing for just a brief instant. Upon seeing the silhouette, Neza broke down in tears, like a child reunited with a long-lost family member. Deep down, Neza had never been evil. He was just a lonely boy craving his father's approval. Every act of rebellion, every outburst, was just his way of crying out for attention. Moved by the moment, I raised my hand and began channeling a tailored stream of divine essence into him. The divine incantation, crafted to align with his soul, echoed through the chamber. As it ended, Neze suddenly froze, a strange power swelling inside him. In the blink of an eye, he stood transformed, feet spinning on flaming wheels, spear in hand, with the universe ring on one shoulder and the heaven-suppressing ribbon draped over the other. Just then, a girl named Lin Exine gasped, "No way." My sync rate with Neze just jumped from 30% to 80%. Before the excitement settled, PANGU'S phantom appeared once more. "Fine. Since you're the disciple of my disciple's disciple, I'll grant you an extra blessing." As his words faded, Neze's body erupted in divine light, transforming instantly into his ultimate form, 3 heads and 6 arms. Overwhelmed, Neze dropped to his knees, bowing in deep gratitude. With both PANGU and me enhancing the ritual, Lin Exine not only became an S-rank godbound, but her sync rate with Neze locked in at a powerful 86%. Next was Lu Yanran, who had bonded with Bai Qi, but by this point, she had already become my biggest fangirl. If Bai Qi hadn't received the full divine infusion earlier, she would have begged me for a second round of power-up. Soon after, all the chosen godbound warriors gathered in full formation. I addressed them calmly but firmly. What we're about to face is a mission unlike any before. Our objective: reclaim the 3 cities that were stolen from the Eastern Realm. I proposed a 3-pronged assault, 30,000 troops under Lu Qing, with Neze, Xiangyu, and Bai Qi leading simultaneous offensives. But the city lord frowned, cautioning, even if most enemy forces are tied up in the tournament, the defenses around those cities aren't something you can breach with just 30,000 men. Lu Qing simply chuckled. If Changsheng weren't taking the lead, we wouldn't even have a shot at this. Young people with strength and purpose should be trusted, not doubted. With Lu Qing's public backing, I stepped forward and added, "We'll broadcast this operation live. Let every citizen witness it. Let our victory ignite the spirit of our people once more." The dean's expression grew tense upon hearing this. If we failed, the Eastern Realm's reputation would become a global laughingstock. But I simply smiled with calm confidence. "Rest assured, Dean, this battle we will win." From a command center, I issued the next directive. "Tell Neze to prepare for divine warfare." Neze led his forces straight toward our first objective, the Indra domain's colonial stronghold, Izhou. But just as they arrived, a thunderous voice echoed across the battlefield. A 3-headed, 6-armed deity riding a radiant peacock appeared from the heavens, shouting, "Foolish brat, how dare you trespass upon the sacred soil of Indra?" The dean jolted upright, his face pale. "That's Brahma, the supreme deity of the Indra domain." I frowned, my thoughts racing. Brahma was one of the trinity gods of the Indra pantheon, once worshipped at the highest echelon of the Brahmanic order. After the decline of the Gupta dynasty, his presence all but vanished, so why would he emerge here, in a remote colony like Izhou? Even with Neze's awakened form, he might not stand a chance in a head-on clash with Brahma. Yet on the battlefield, Neze showed no fear. His voice rang out like a battle cry. "Sacred soil of Indra? Don't make me laugh. Izhou has always been part of the Eastern Realm, governed under Yangzhou. You foreign invaders have no right to claim it." Neze stood tall, fire-tipped spear blazing in his grip. "I've come to reclaim the lost lands of the Eastern Realm. Stand in my way and be burned." Back in the command center, the dean grew frantic. "That's reckless. He can't charge in like that." Even as an SS-rank god, Neze is nothing more than a slightly stronger insect before a supreme deity like Brahma. But something didn't sit right with me. With power like Brahma's, he wouldn't need words. He'd simply crush. Something's off about him. Brahma's palm glowed with a strange green light, radiating an eerie spiritual aura. "So, you are a child of fate," Brahma said gently. "The ties between your Taoist lineage and our Buddhist path run deep. Perhaps destiny brought you here. Come, return to the fold." Embrace your divine calling and walk the path of enlightenment. Nez's eyes blazed with fury. My fate is mine to command, not heaven's. In a flash, the crimson silk of the universe ring wrapped around Brahma, binding him tightly. Neza roared and lunged, spear first, charging like a divine thunderstorm. Watching from afar, I couldn't help but smile. Neza, though arrogant, fought with both rage and precision. When he struck, he held nothing back. The dean looked on in horror. So this is the might of a supreme deity? Even Neza's full strength can't break through his defense. Just then, the sword saint Lu Qing entered the room, his expression grim. Not necessarily. Brahma's energy flow is unstable. If Neza can shatter his resolve, he might still prevail. On the battlefield, Brahma remained calm, his voice echoing like a divine chant. You are born of sacred power. You should stand atop the golden altar, enshrined and worshipped by all. Do not stray from your true path. Enough talk. Neza roared. He lunged forward, unleashing a devastating spear, strike straight at Brahma. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes. That's not his true body. As expected, this wasn't Brahma himself. It was merely an astral projection. Neza laughed coldly, his aura flaring. So that's what the great Buddha amounts to? Just a puppet spewing hollow sermons. He raised his weapon, and with a fiery thrust, aimed to obliterate Brahma's clone in one strike. Brahma's expression twisted in panic as he summoned his sacred artifact, the golden alms bowl, to shield himself. An explosion erupted with deafening force, setting the sky ablaze with fire and divine energy. Back in the command center, the dean gasped. Good thing it was only a projection. Otherwise, Neza might not have made it out alive. I, however, wore a grave expression. Brahma's influence in the Indra domain must be faltering. To send a mere clone to a frontier colony. Seems he's being squeezed out by Vishnu and Shiva. Those three are titans of the mythic arena. Meanwhile, on the Hongdao front, Xiang Yu had cut off all escape routes. He opened every ship's floodgate and set fire to the entire fleet, thick smoke billowing over the coast. Our kin have suffered long enough. His voice thundered across the battlefield. Today, we burn our ships and stake everything on this final battle. No retreat, only victory or death. The soldiers stared in awe. So this is the true aura of the conqueror king. To fight under his banner, I'd give my life. And with that, the battlefield echoed with a single war cry. Burn the ships. Reclaim our land.